and this is the Rutherford County, Tennessee Public Works and Planning Committee. So we are going to call to order. And do we have minutes, Rachel? Well, I would love to call on the illustrious Vice Chair, Mr. Steve Piercy, for the for approval. You're right. Not in my district, that's correct.
Chairman Cush, I have reviewed the minutes and find them in order. I do move for their approval.
Thank you. We have a second from whoever you'd like to write down there. All of those in favor signify aye. Aye. Any opposed? Thank you. That motion carries. Do we have a Highway Department representative here tonight? No report. All right, moving right along, we have a building codes report, I know. So Tanya, welcome to the podium.
Oh, there we go. All right. We'll start with our building inspections, building permits. In the month of February, we had 19 working days, and we issued a total of 328 building permits. 93 of those were single-family dwellings, for a total revenue of $137,495. So that was very similar to this time last year. This time last year, we did 88 single-family dwellings, and we had about the same revenue, $139,000, up quite a bit from last month. Sorry, paper's all mixed up. Last month we had 53 single-family dwellings, so we're up quite a bit from last month. Anybody have any questions on single-family dwelling permits?
Being none, continue on.
Okay. We'll hit on, you've got, let's see, I'm not sure what order it is in your iPad, but you've got a report that has development tax collection, and it's got the month on the top, February 2022. It's got 3 blocks, looks a lot like this.
That's correct.
All right. Tried to simplify this report a little bit because it was getting a little busy. So the very first box up there is the development tax collected, and that was a total of $95,250. I also put in the report that you have typically gotten over the years, just so you can compare past year's development tax. Not sure if you're interested in that anymore or not, but we stuck it in there this month. School facilities tax, we collected a total of $367,665.50. And that is broken down in the last box that you've got between SFDs, townhomes, additions, and then accessories with living. Anybody have any questions on that?
So additional square footing would be, what, if they added a bedroom, living room, came and got a building permit for an extension to the existing home?
Correct. Okay. So if they add square footage, heated and cooled conditioned square footage to a single-family dwelling,
change the
school facilities tax applies.
Change the garage into a living room or attic into a living room, a living space?
If it's currently under roof, so for example, the garage was permitted with a single-family dwelling and was charged with development tax at that time, that is exempt. It only applies to an addition with a new footing, that is actual new square footage, new footprint to the single-family dwelling.
Gotcha. Yes.
Do you have I can't see it on here, I probably missed it, but do you have a total of school facilities tax so far? Is it to $2,200,000?
It is.
So we kind of estimated $4 million. We're going to come up short on that one.
This first year, we probably will. I mean, we've said over and over again that this first year is going to be hit or miss. As we transition between development tax to school facilities tax, it's not going to be accurate. I would think that you'll see a better number next year.
So when we start doing budgets, do you feel somewhat confident that we will be able to reach that $4 million mark?
So the development tax, I haven't typically tried to predict that in the past.
Yeah. I'm not trying to put you on the spot. I'm just trying, I know budgets are coming up, and we're trying to see what the revenue is.
So if numbers continue the way they are, then I don't think we'll have any problem hitting that number at all.
Thank you.
If our building permit numbers stay consistent. Anybody else? Nope. And I'll move on to zoning enforcement. Zoning enforcement, we had 108 inspections in the month of February. And that concludes my monthly report.
Any questions? If not, we need a motion to accept those meetings.
Second.
All right. All those in favor? Any opposed? Thank you. All right. Rachel, Tanya, I believe you have,
I do. I have my fiscal year 22-23 budget, and I gave you a paper copy because unfortunately I didn't get it onto the iPad today. So I will go down through there item by item. I really don't have a whole lot of changes. Everything's pretty consistent with what it was last year. In 106, you'll notice that is my deputies. I have increased that by a total of about 16,000, and the reason for that is we had 3 new inspectors that joined us last year, this fiscal year, that are getting ready to become completely certified, and when they become completely certified, their pay increases. They go up a couple of steps on the pay scale. So that number allows for that increase because I imagine they will get completely certified here within the next few months. There is also an additional $8,500 to, I would like to reassign one of my positions to a deputy director in my department. I do not have a deputy director, and I could really use one. My senior inspector has been a lifesaver. He just is amazing, and I would like to offer him the deputy director spot. I would not replace his position. I would just switch his position from senior building inspector to deputy director. And that would make an $8,500 difference in his pay. Anybody have any questions about that before I move on?
yes.
Yes.
Mr. Chairman, members of the committee, let me just go ahead and say this up front because this is the first budget you've looked at. What I've asked all of our directors and departments to do this year is when they come in, we'll talk about any increases in personnel, and then we'll look at that, make notations. Then I ask them all to drop down. We're not taking anything right now and talking about any increase in pay or anything else because of our current study that we're currently doing. So as the department heads come in, we drop down if they're not asking for additional. In this case, I do support our recommendation to support Tanya on her request for the assistant director and the 3 pay increase. But all the budgets between now and the time the pay scale comes back, we start at communications and basically go down from that point. Then we'll come back once we have decided what we're going to decide upon as far as increase in pay. We'll plug those back in. Lisa can plug those back into each one of those respective budgets at that point in time. But she's brought us a very conservative budget at this point. She does need help. She does need a number 2, the assistant director. She's growing and continuing to increase, and with the number of homes, she's overwhelmed with that department. So it does have my recommendation, Mr. Chairman.
Well, I will move on down then past all the salary-related line items to communication, and that will stay the same as it was last year. Dues and memberships will stay the same. Operating lease payments is for leased vehicles. Last year I estimated 18, and I've increased that based on the prices that the leased vehicles ended up being to $22,800, so that's an increase of $4,800. Maintenance agreements is for our software that is used between myself. This is the annual maintenance agreement for the software that's used between building codes, planning, engineering, stormwater, and fire. Postal charges stay the same, printing will stay the same, travel will stay the same, contracted is the same. Gasoline, I've increased by just 2,000, just anticipating an increase in fuel. Office supplies is the same, uniforms is the same, other supplies and materials the same, in-service is the same, and data processing is the same. And that brings my budget to about $16,000 less than it was last year.
Fantastic. Are you comfortable?
I am, yep. Yes. Thank you.
All right. Questions, comments? Commissioner Piercy.
On your leased vehicles, are you satisfied with their performance? Do they stay out of the shop pretty good, or do you have shop trouble?
With our leased vehicles, this is my first year experience with leased vehicles. And so far, we've got one and we've got two coming.
So you don't have any?
I've got one and two coming, yes. This payment covers them next year.
Okay, thank you.
Everything's free the first year.
Did we get electric vehicles by any chance for
No.
the lease? All right. We would need a motion to accept her first pass at a budget into the archives.
So moved.
Second.
All right. All those in favor?
Aye.
All right.
Thank you so much. Have a good night.
Thank you, Tanya.
Do we need to roll call budgets?
Probably. Let's go on record, yeah. Thank you, Phil.
Commissioner Blair,
Yes.
Commissioner Dodd,
Yes.
Commissioner Harris. Yes. Commissioner Piercy,
Yes.
Commissioner P,
Yes.
Commissioner Chirino,
Yes.
Chairman Cush.
Yes. All right. Doug and Michael, this would be the planning and engineering report.
Sir, thank you, Mr. Chairman. Good evening, everyone. Before we get into the rezoning report, I'll just briefly go over the subdivision lot inventory. As of the end of February, we are at 709 available lots. Again, those are lots that are ready for building permits, those that have been recorded. That's down about 40 or so from last month. I think it was about 745 or so last month. We haven't seen just a whole lot. We've seen a lot of activity as far as plats and plans coming into our office. We've just kind of seen a slowdown right now as far as the lots that are actually being recorded, new subdivision sections. It's only a matter of time before they start recording them, but we have seen a little bit of a slowdown. So that's why the decline in the numbers, you'll see this fluctuate a little more when we start seeing more and more of those plats be recorded. We had a pretty hefty submittal this last deadline about a week ago, so things are moving forward as far as that goes. We also submitted a report where we break that down into plats recorded prior to July 1st of 2021, and then those after, basically development tax versus the school facilities tax. Again, it's the same information, really just broken down a little bit differently. The number of lots available in your development tax report, of course, eventually it's going to keep going down. It's never going to go back up, and eventually it will zero out. And then the schools facilities tax number, that'll be the one that gets larger and fluctuates over time. So again, same data, just a different way of presenting it for you. Any questions on that? If not, I'll go ahead and move into our rezoning report. We have 2 rezoning cases coming before you next week. We actually had 3 at the Planning Commission, but 1 was deferred and hasn't moved forward yet, so there'll only be the 2 that we'll be looking at. First is for property located at 9158 Franklin Road. Property zoned residential medium density, and they're asking for commercial services zoning. Excuse me. They're asking, again, for the commercial services zoning. There's an existing business on the property. It's a landscaping type and nursery type business. They plan to use the area to build an additional structure, about 20,000 square feet, to store dry goods and distribute to other service centers in the Middle Tennessee area. There is a concept plan that is included with your agenda packets on your iPads. They will use access through the existing business along Franklin Road. Of course, if any development will require a site plan of that size, will have to go before the Planning Commission, so that will be brought into our office at some point should this be approved. The commission did ask some questions about screening and the drainage on that property. Screening, just asking really when it's required and when it's not, so we did clarify that. And also, as far as drainage was concerned, we did state the applicant would need to demonstrate on the site plan that they are not causing any additional water flow onto adjacent properties. Following discussion, the Planning Commission did recommend approval of that request by a unanimous vote. The second request is for property located along Woodbury Pike. It's actually 5253 Woodbury Pike. They are also zoned RM, medium density residential, and are asking for commercial general zoning, which is a class up, a level up from commercial service. It's a little more intense than what you see in a commercial services zone. Excuse me while I zoom over there on my iPad here, or my Surface, excuse me. The applicant submitted a very thorough application package, and that is within your agenda packets today on your iPads. They currently operate a well drilling, pump, and installation service in the Las Casas community, which they also live on that property, but they've purchased the subject property to move their business to. The material state they would have 12 trucks on the property, 8 of them leave by 8 in the morning and then return by 5. The remaining 4 trucks are used for specialty jobs, and they state they have about 10 employees. Again, they also did include a concept plan with your agenda materials, again, on your iPads. They would locate the building near the rear of the site. This would not be a retail site, but would just be used for equipment and material storage. Their access would be from Woodbury Pike. Again, a site plan would be required to be submitted to the Planning Commission for their approval, should this application be approved. After the public hearing, there wasn't really anyone that spoke one way or the other on that. Most of the questions at the Planning Commission were about the operation of the business. The applicant will not live on the property, and his family is taking over the business. The commission was very complimentary on the applicant's submittal package and his business ethic over the years. They also asked him, the property is within a 100-year floodplain completely, and he is aware of that and has already made provisions in his budgeting as far as what he would have to do as far as floor elevations and different things to accommodate for that should this be approved. And again, following discussion, the Planning Commission did recommend approval by a unanimous vote. So I'll be happy to discuss either of those applications with you.
Any questions?
I noticed the first staff recommendation was approval, but the second one you were neutral.
Yes, sir. You want me to explain why, I guess? Yeah. Yeah, the first one, right. Sure. The first application was really just an expansion of an existing business. There's also a good amount of commercial, non-residential zoning in that area along Franklin Road. The second property, the one I just explained, there is commercial zoned property in the vicinity, not immediately adjacent to it, so we could kind of see pluses and minuses for it. We didn't really get any public opposition to it, and again, nobody spoke at the public hearing. The applicant did present a very detailed package of what he's proposing to do. So I have more of a comfort level now, and I know the Planning Commission did as well.
Anything else? Robert?
Well, just to kind of follow up on that, I've talked to that applicant, and one thing I stress is get over and meet your neighbors, and he did a good job of doing that. And that's why you didn't have a lot of, any opposition on that.
Yeah, I think that
I had questions about it beforehand.
Yes, sir. I think the package that's in your agenda packets, I think he sent that to all the neighbors out there too. So that's, kudos to him. We don't see that happen a whole lot.
Well, this guy's been in business for a long time. He's got a good name, so that's a lot to do with it too.
Would need a motion to accept these reports. All right. Second. All right. Thank you. And Doug, are you going to start on your budget first?
Yes, did you want to have the vote first before?
Oh, sure. Let's do that. All those in favor signify aye. Any opposed?
I mean, I'm more than willing to keep talking.
I'll put you down for a yes.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Planning and Engineering, we are pleased to present to you our fiscal year 2022-23 budget. I've got Mike here as back up my muscle if I have any issues here, so we're good there. And Mike will also go over the stormwater budget for the fiscal year as 2022 and 23 as well. On your iPads, we do have both budgets. The first one I'm looking at is the Planning and Engineering budget. You'll notice that several of the line items that are changing significantly, we highlighted and red and bolded those just for a little bit of ease in kind of maneuvering around the budget. The largest change to our budget is in line item, excuse me real quick, line item 103, which is assistance. You'll see that that is increasing, and the reason we are asking for that is we're asking for a new planning position. This would be a staff level planner. I already have an assistant director and a GIS planner. We did some polling of some of the other county planning jurisdictions in the area and around the state, and despite our population being higher than a lot of those, our unincorporated area population, the number of planners we have on staff is pretty much the same, or they may have 2 planners, we've got 3 for our population. Obviously there's a lot going on. I don't think I need to tell anybody here that how much growth that we are experiencing here. We used to have a total of 4 planners in the office until the recession back in 08, 09, 10 hit, and we lost one of those positions. We've been operating with 3 planners since that time. So really what we're asking for is just to add that 4th planning position back into our budget. So most of the items that you see below that, as far as the benefits and insurance and things that go along with that, increased with the fact that we were asking for the new planner position. I would also say that with a lot of the initiatives we have going on right now, with the comprehensive plan update and everything, there's going to be recommendations and things that come out of that we are going to want to act on. And having a 4th planner on staff will allow us to make some of those changes that we would like to make. I tell people all the time, with the amount of growth going on here, I feel more like I'm a reacting director than I am a planning director. And honestly, I would like to be able to get into some real planning, for foresight kind of things. So that's a good chunk of the increase that you're seeing on this. Another item under consultants, the comprehensive plan balance, you'll see it's $113,000. This isn't new money. This is really just shifting money from previous fiscal year just to finish up the project is what we're looking at that. That number will more than likely go down between now and the end of this fiscal year. So when that happens, we'll take out a purchase order out of this fiscal year, and then this number will keep decreasing over time. I'm going to come back to the traffic and civil engineering services. I want Mike to give a little bit more information on that. You'll see that we did program a pretty hefty increase in gas prices, just with everything going on right now and the volatility of oil and gas. We thought it'd be a good idea to add a little bit in there for that. We also asked for a little extra money in our office supplies line item. That's $435. You see that's at $11,750. We keep the Mylar plats in our office after they're recorded. And right now we've got about 4 of those large, they're fireproof type cabinets, and we're running out of space, so we need another one. So that's where you see that. Also hanging file for construction drawings, and then the remaining $6,250 is just what we normally have programmed in there. And those last 2 line items at the bottom there, the $6,250 that you see under data processing equipment and then furniture and fixtures, that's for the technology for the new planner, should we get that position, and also for we have an extra room that we want to turn into a conference room. No changes to the room itself as far as physical changes, really just adding technology and some office equipment, chairs, table, things like that. So overall, our budget did increase by about 12.5%, but a good chunk of that was due to the planning position that we'd like to add. So, and I'll come back and I'll let Mike talk about the traffic.
Okay. We have added a brand-new account line 321 for engineering services. And what we want to do with this is to get some consulting fee money together. We evaluated that there are approximately 30 miles of unmapped FEMA streams in the county. And that's where FEMA just terminated the study for some reason or another, and they did not map the southernmost sections of the streams. So to do a FEMA level study, what we're proposing to do is to apply for grant applications to help cover the cost. Each mile, we've got an estimate that will include surveying, studying, mapping, and coordinating with FEMA would cost over $40,000 per mile. So that's going to be 30 miles, that's over $1.2 million. And what we're proposing to do is not do this all at once. We're going to eat the elephant one bite at a time. And so what we're going to do is maybe take 5 miles at a time each budget year. The county's portion of that, well, if we did it all 5 miles and hired a consultant to do that, that would be over $200,000. So the county's portion for the grants that we're applying for would be 25% that we would have to cover. So that's approximately over $50,000. We rounded it up to $55,000 for this grant application, are the county's cost sharing. So we have several instances where we're in the process right now of buying out FEMA. It's a FEMA buyout. There's a couple in Rockvale that you can talk to Commissioner Reed about. They stopped the study of Concord Creek, which flows into the Harpeth River. It's typically FEMA will not do the entire stream. They'll say that we're going to do, we'll stop at 1 square mile of the drainage basin. Once it reduces down to 1 square mile, which is 640 acres, we'll stop studying it. Well, for some reason, they stopped studying Concord Creek a little under 6 square miles. So that's a huge area that they did not study. And this is one of these unmapped FEMA streams that will provide critical information when somebody comes to build a house, somebody comes to develop a piece of property or anything like that. We'll know the hazard, the flood hazard levels that will have to be protected on. So that's a big hunk of that line item 321 that we're asking for. And the other $15,000 that we're going to be asking for is more consulting services for traffic signals. We have in our possession several traffic signals. Several are maintained through agreements through the city of Murfreesboro. And essentially they operate the maintenance of them, the timing of them, and make sure that they function properly. However, the Bill France at 840, and then we'll be getting a new traffic signal at Rock Springs Midland Road and Shelbyville Pike. That's one of the worst intersections for crashes and fatalities in the county. So TDOT has studied that and said that, yes, we need a traffic signal down there, but that is outside of the urban growth boundary of the city of Murfreesboro. Since it's outside the urban growth boundary, Murfreesboro said that we're not going to maintain that for you, and we're not going to manage that for you. So what I'd like to do is, on occasion, use the services of a traffic engineer to look at the signaling, the timing of the movements and everything like that, that we feel that will be important to keep that up and running. Now, the mayor, in his budget, does a lot of the paying for the regular signals inside that have the agreements with the city of Murfreesboro and the town of Smyrna. That comes out of his budget. But we felt that we wanted to include some money for a traffic engineer for those two that are outside of the service area that Smyrna won't maintain and Murfreesboro won't maintain. So, yes, sir.
I have a question.
Yes, sir.
This is for the mayor, actually. Mayor Ketron, if I'm hearing him right, he's saying that the city of Murfreesboro won't service this light. So is it just this light, or they're not going to service any of our lights?
No, just the ones that are outside of their urban growth boundary. So the
How
one,
many?
two. Yes, sir. So we have got one right now at Bill France and 840 up at the Nashville Superspeedway, almost to Wilson County. And then the other one will be getting a new traffic signal down at Rock Springs, Midland, and Shelbyville Pike.
So this increase that you're asking for in your budget, it's based on the amount that Murfreesboro will charge us to service these, or are you
No, sir.
going
No, sir.
outside?
This is outside. So they have traffic engineers on staff that they make sure the functions, the traffic signals functions, the timing of the movements, everything functions properly. Now, they work through, it was S&W, now it's Stansel Electric, to change the lights, bulbs, the inner workings of the traffic cabinets. They do the electrical components, but the actual movements of and design of the traffic signal needs to come from a traffic engineer. So the one at Bill France and 840 has been on flash for a decade, a dozen years. So it needs to be evaluated, studied, and then reactivated, because they did have a race this past Father's Day, I think, and they had to have sheriff deputies out there controlling traffic. So
Did we not vote back earlier to have that fixed and appropriate the money?
we did.
What happened?
They fixed the lights and the components. They upgraded that, but they did not do anything. It's still flashing. It's still flashing. So we need to have somebody look at that and look at the movements of it and say, okay, you've got so much traffic coming from, Bill France turning north on 840. So, and then how long does that signal need to be to clear that right turn lane or the left turn lane, go head south?
Did the money we appropriated for that, was it supposed to fix the flashing and make it work?
Mr. Chairman.
It was several dollars.
That was my impression. I don't know what happened, Mike.
They upgraded the lights from regular halogen lights to LED lights.
We went to LED lights.
Yes, sir.
And we also had the choice either to replace the pressure tape in the asphalt or go to the
Cameras.
fiber optic that would catch the number of cars. And we were supposed to upgrade that as well. And I was shocked to learn that S&W, because we went directly to them, and then when the race occurred, that we had to have a patrolman out there, and I was going, what did we pay for?
They changed the components, the gearings, but they have to have someone tell them how many minutes or seconds a signal needs to, the movement needs to be.
So Mike and I have had this discussion, Mr. Chairman. I think it's appropriate that we now have this discussion about traffic lights because it's frustrating to me. I received a letter from the city about, 2 weeks ago, Mike? I guess we got a letter stating that from this point forward, here's the rates, and they had from Rom, he charges $150 an hour, and then all the way down to whoever touches that light. Used to, the county only had 1 or 2 lights, but now because cities, Smyrna, Murfreesboro are not annexing out as fast because they can't, because of annexation law, a lot of developments are happening out in the rural area, so it's getting us to the point to where, how many lights do we have now, Mike? 9?
It's not that many. It's like 6 or 8.
6 or,
yeah.
okay.
We gained 2 when they widened Jefferson Pike.
But we're getting to the point, and I've asked for the owner of S&W. I wanted to call him and ask him, because when we call the city and say, hey, that light's flashing that belongs to us, we call the city, and now the city's saying, well, it's outside our urban boundary growth. We're not going to fix that. So we're in kind of a dilemma. They're going to take care of the ones inside the boundary growth, and now we have some outside. Now is the time, do we actually contract with somebody else and say that to take care of all of our lights? We need probably, I'm advising that we probably need to explore that, but the guy from S&W, I want to ask him, can we go directly to him, or does he have engineers that can do this?
I don't believe they do, but we could look into that.
I think we're at that point that we're growing out in. There's going to be more growth in Rockville. There's going to be more growth going towards Kittrell as things begin to, Las Casas, everything's going to grow. We're going to have to, more subdivisions come in, more traffic, we're going to have more signals. So I don't think we want to put up a computer room just to handle the signalization and all the monitors and cameras of the intersections across the county, but we're getting to the point where we're going to have to make a decision. And now we're going to have to go to another company to do what the city's doing on this one, because they won't do it outside their boundary growth. So we might as well talk to the new company about doing all of them and see what their price is.
Yes, sir. Right.
Because the city did put us on notice with that letter, with those rates. They haven't charged us yet, but it's coming.
Right. They typically don't charge for their staff time. They just charge for their S&W or Stansel Electric, what they go out and fix the components. We've had 1 or 2 signals, one at Jefferson and Lebanon Pike was hit by something tall and it was hanging.
Right.
And we
went out and fixed it.
And they had to run out and fix that, replace the whole traffic signal head.
But I felt like they were putting us on notice when they sent us their rate.
Well, yes, sir.
Chairman, question. Out at 840 near the racetrack,
Yes, sir.
when that signalization gets fixed, will the signalization stay the same 365 days out of the year, or will it only change during the race event or a special event?
Most likely, I would think it would function on a normal day-to-day basis. And like the mayor said, when it will stay green, most likely on Bill France. And then when somebody comes off the ramp at 840, they'll trip the signal and let the signal know that, okay, I want to make a left turn onto Bill France or something like that. It's got a automatic sensor that lets it know when when cars are coming and changes the signal. So now when you have the race days, you have a lot more traffic and you want to be able to control that. So the sheriff deputies can have the ability to turn the light off and operate the traffic signal with their movements.
Yeah, they can manually direct it when there's that
Yes.
kind of crowd.
Right. So that was
Wait.
another big ticket. Yes, sir.
In the beginning of the discussion of this light that we did spend the money on and now it's still flashing, does that light not set in Wilson County?
No, sir.
No, sir, it's an hour.
We not asked Wilson County to contribute to what we spent on it, and they did not, they turned us down?
Yeah, Mayor Hutto came over and wanted me to swap him some property right there that belongs to us at the intersection. And he said, you want to swap some property? And I said, I don't think that's ever been done in the history of our state, that we swap
He
property.
wanted to take some of Rutherford County.
Yeah,
He wanted to
because
take
of
that
the light.
intersection.
Because they have a sewer system that comes to the racetrack from Lebanon Water Sewer, and they're not allowed to go outside their county boundary, so he wanted to swap some property. I said, wait, Mayor, what are you going to swap for me? You going to give me Cedars Lebanon Park or what?
That will be, if we can get some kind of sewer, septic system, something, that will be valuable commercial property right there at that interchange.
They want a McDonald's, a Burger King, some fast food,
Stations,
gas
yes.
station right there by the track.
So that's eventually that will come.
Yeah,
But
it's coming.
Wilson County, like the mayor said, could not serve it because it was outside the county. So,
Before we spend any more money on this light, let's be definite what we're going to get for it.
yes, sir. Right.
Phil?
But what's in the budget tonight is not adding signals, or it's just
No.
you're bucketing $15,000
Yes, sir.
for potential traffic studies, or not traffic studies, excuse me, timing studies on 2 specific lights, one that's coming and one that's out there.
Right.
So that's the topic at hand, and we'll take up swapping with the city perhaps when that comes up, but we'll stay on task.
Yes, sir.
In my recollection, out at the racetrack, the traffic light, we simply did maintenance. I think the amount of money that we spent was not to turn it on and start timing it. We discovered after 10 years of neglect that it was, lenses were broken, bulbs were out, bulbs were obsolete. So I think we got our money's worth because we weren't doing any kind of signalization. It was just
Right.
getting them up to speed where when they're on flash, everything's
So
working.
they could function again.
Yeah.
So, no, the state, when they built that intersection, they said, here you go, here's a traffic signal. And so I approached the town of Smyrna, and, they've said, well, that's too far out of it is in their urban growth boundary, but it's too far for them to want to service. So that's why that was left out in any agreements.
Mike, I have a question about the FEMA thing. Do you want to finish your thing?
No,
and we'll go
I'm
back?
good. Yes, sir.
Okay. I'm sure we're all thinking this, so I'm going to ask it. If FEMA historically I think you know where I'm going already. If FEMA historically goes down to the 1 square mile of basin, and you've determined this is 6, have you not asked FEMA, say, hey, did you guys overlook this? When are you coming back to finish the 5 extra?
I've not gotten an official answer, but I believe it's based on population. So if there's not many people, not many rooftops in this area, it's not that critical to them. So you look farther north where the rivers converge and you see more rooftops and more activity, that's where their interest is. But we're seeing more and more development creep down 99, down 231, all these southern parts of the county are seeing more and more rooftops. So that's, we are under a new preliminary FEMA study that they've started 2 years ago. And it's still a preliminary, the maps are still preliminary. So eventually we will get updated maps in some areas, but not the southern section. It's still, to their opinion, and this is just Mike talking, it's not that many people down there, so it's not that critical. We've got to spend our money in other areas, and that's Mike's opinion. That's not anybody else. But we have reached out to them, and it just heard crickets.
Greg?
I want to talk about, I've known you for 4 years, and I've always pounded this and pounded you on FEMA buybacks.
Yes, sir.
So I want to go back through this. How many did we buy last year?
We were approved. We applied for 6. We were approved for 4 after a 2-year review process. And the 2 that they did not deny but just put to the side were the 2 in Commissioner Reed's district on Concord Creek off of Rockville Road. But we're still going through the process of appraisals, and then eventually, once we get all the green lights, we can buy those back, gets the approval from each individual owner. They have to sign off on it, and then we'll move forward with purchasing property and then demolitions.
Is this reflected in your budget? So here's my question, Mike. We got 4 applicants.
Right.
We got 2 that look pretty good we're going to buy in Eagleville, right?
Yes, sir. Right.
Okay,
right.
don't worry about it. But we're going to end up buying something, right?
Yes, sir.
Okay. So my question to you is, how do we know, and how does the mayor know, how to budget this money for these buybacks?
We got an estimate 3 years ago when we made the application that how much the county's portion would be. So
25%?
12 and a half. So the state pays 12 and a half, and then FEMA pays 75. So we made an estimate with how much these properties would appreciate over the time. Unfortunately, FEMA took longer than normally we would see a review cycle. So money was set aside for the county's portion, to make a long story short, out of the general services budget. Yeah, general funds.
So it's coming out of the general services?
Yes.
Okay. Mr. Mayor, how are you budgeting that? Like, for instance, he's got 4 houses, and there's a possibility we had to buy back 4 houses. And your last year's budget didn't reflect that. This year's budget doesn't reflect that. So where does that money, what do we do when that happens? I know that's got to put you in a spot. It's got to put us in a spot.
Well, it comes out of the general fund,
Right. Money is set aside when we
Not-
ask for.
not general services, general fund.
General fund, I'm sorry.
General fund.
When we asked to make the application for the grant, we said, okay, this is what these houses are worth now. This is what we expect them to be worth in a year. And we set aside the 12.5%
Each applicant.
for each one. Yes, sir.
So we got all the money we need
Yes.
right now
Yes.
for 4 of the applications in, not counting the ones that are coming in now.
Just the 4. Just the 4. The 2 others in Rockville are on limbo, so we don't know about those. But it was not in our budget last year or the year before. It's set aside as a special account in the finance department.
Yeah, it's in the finance department. It's not in his budget, in any one of his line items.
I just know it's an unforeseen factor.
It is. I guess I would question with homes escalating the way that they are and people offering $100,000 more than what people were asking for.
That is my worry. That-
My concern there is what's that going to do to us?
Right. And FEMA has indicated that they will up their portion as well, but we might have to up ours. So I might be back asking for more money for the 4 that we applied for 2.5 years ago.
And what happens if we decline?
Sir?
What happens if we decline? It's too high.
Then we don't spend any money and the houses stay in the flood risk. So I hate buybacks. I mean, I'll say that anytime. We do everything we can on the front end to protect houses, neighborhoods, everything that we're seeing coming in. Some of the stuff that we're buying back were, subdivisions. One of them was from the 50s. It was built a lot newer than that, but another one was from the 70s and a couple were from the 80s. So we're benefiting from a lot more information today, and we can tell, okay, if a flood happens, are these homes going to be at risk? So,
Let me tell you what bothers me.
yes, sir.
You gave us a map, and that map showed flooded houses that we bought back.
We applied to buy back. Yes, sir.
Yes.
Yes,
Well,
sir.
there was one next door that didn't want to sell.
Right.
All right? So if then all of a sudden he wants to sell, and property values have almost doubled, now we're in a situation where we got to pay him what the market price is now? I mean, if you turn it down, is that not something we need to talk to our delegates about? As to, it's to something with the law that says, they can't keep, why wouldn't I sell it to you when it's already, the market value went up double?
Well, are you saying the person that next door to it that did not want to be a part of it? No, we would not include them any time in the future. So yes, sir. Once he said that, no, I'm not interested, he's done.
Okay.
Yes, sir.
Commissioner P.
We have got a list that we were conveniently given that shows the lots that are available in this county. Now, having said these were from the past, but built on because they were approved in the past, is there any way we can say, hey, any of these in the past a certain date, we need to review, reapprove before
Yes.
anything can be built on them
Yes, sir.
to keep this from happening in the future?
Oh, absolutely. Yes, sir. We work closely with building codes, and they know if there's a subdivision that's over a few years old, they'll come back to us and say, hey, somebody wants to build a house on this subdivision. What do you think? And our engineers, in-house engineers, will look at it. Me, my assistant, and our new engineer in training will look at these. Every piece of property that you want to build a new house on, you want to build a barn on, you want to add an addition to, we will look at. So that takes a lot of time from us, but we feel it's very important, and I can't stress this enough. I hate to do FEMA buybacks. I don't want to see another one. So anything that's built under my watch in this county, it's going to be evaluated.
So what you're telling me is we won't have this problem in the future?
I don't want to see this problem ever again. You know, the grant process is terrible. It's long, painful. So you know.
Well, the reason I'm bringing this up, and I mentioned this in the past, I know Metro has done basin studies on all their areas, and
Right.
I
Well, this
understand.
is the FEMA is part of it. So, and I'm sorry, I didn't mean to give y'all a lecture on drainage, but over half of the county does not drain to rivers, creeks, streams. So there's sinkhole drainage basins. These areas do have some streams, but they drain into big sinkholes and don't connect to Stones River or Harpeth River or anything like that. So that's, if we'd studied every watershed basin in the county, it would be in the millions of dollars. In the millions of dollars. So we're doing a little bit at a time. And I want to start on the FEMA streams and get those studied, because we know, you know, that if we don't look at those, we you know, going to be in the buyback business forever. But if there's a basin or somebody coming into a sinkhole watershed basin that I was talking about, we need to evaluate that, have the design team evaluate that, and look at that carefully. So if we get another 2010 flood and it fills up this basin, where's that water going to go? Is it going to go into the new houses? Is it going to go into the neighboring houses, you know, the existing houses? So there's a lot of factors that we look into in the planning and engineering department. So it's always a fun day in Rutherford County.
Well, you know, again, you know, I've had this discussion. There are grant monies out there to
That's
help
what
us with
yes,
these,
sir.
so, you know,
Right. So if we
Reba's still doing that for us.
If we
but-
did the 30 miles of the unmapped FEMA streams, the stuff that does drain to rivers, creeks, and streams, that's $1.2 million that I would be asking for out of this budget, in addition to our regular budget. That's in, you know, so we are going to ask for a grant for this, but we will have to do the quarter matching for whatever we ask for.
Well, $1.2 million, is that what you said?
Yes, for just the 30 miles of unmapped FEMA streams.
Okay.
Yes, sir.
So what's it going to cost us to do 4 houses?
Yes, sir. Right. Well, it would be 75% from FEMA, 12.5 from the state, and we would cover the 12.5. It would be 12.5 for us. Yes, sir. It was in the millions of dollars for the 4 houses. Yes, 1.4 or something like that, 1.8. Yes, sir.
What else you got, Michael?
Well, yeah, I think Doug covered most everything, but the changes in red are the differences from the previous years. You know, him asking for another planner, more gas, engineering studies for us, cabinets, and then just some incidentals to go with the new planner, technology and.
If you got other questions about this
Right.
budget in general, I could be more than happy to talk about those. I know you still have your stormwater budget.
Right,
to go over.
right.
Mr. Chairman, two questions, or I think I'll end in a motion if Mike's done. So the additional planner, the fact that you reminded us that we're reacquiring the planner that we lost in '08 won me over. That makes sense. I'll
It was
just,
probably, I mean, in all fair, it was probably more 11, 12 is when she ended up leaving, but yeah,
I
during that
recall
recession, right.
that occasion. Because at first I was reluctant, but reminding us that was compelling. And number two, the 70,000 begins the flood studies. We're just getting some money set aside for outside consultants to come in and do a flood study on a basin to be determined.
Yes, sir.
By
So
us.
we're going to try, our first year, we're going to go for 5 miles of unmapped FEMA streams, and then do a little bit at each time.
Based on grants, so you'll bring the grant to us?
Yes, sir.
When it becomes available, you'll let us know which basin. You've already done, I think, Old Nashville by the airport.
We've applied for that.
We funded it
Still
through
waiting
a
on
grant?
that. Yes, sir.
Okay.
So if the grants take 2 years to come back, I mean, we won't spend this money. It'll stay in our budget and it'll go back to the general funds. So, and then we'll come back the next year and say, hey, we haven't heard from them, so we want to include this money again for this year. So.
The biggest change has been the 70,000 in consultation, plus the 15 in traffic light study, plus the new planner. If those are the biggest components, if the mayor approves, I would make a motion to approve that budget and forward it to Budget Committee, if the mayor agrees.
Second.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, members of the committee. I think it's a very conservative budget on both of these, stormwater and planning budget. You know, he hadn't used his kayak we gave him 2 years ago because of COVID. You know, so I think we're in pretty good shape.
We're appreciative.
My motion was planning and engineering only.
This is just planning and engineering. I'll talk about stormwater.
Yeah,
up
my
next.
motion was planning and engineering only.
All right, we have a motion and a second. You want to do roll call, Rachel?
Commissioner Dodd,
Yes.
Commissioner Blair,
Yes.
Commissioner Harris,
Yes.
Commissioner Piercy,
Yes.
Commissioner P,
Yes.
Commissioner Sereno,
Yes.
Chairman Cush.
All right, Michael.
Okay. On your iPad also, you'll find our stormwater budget for the 22-23 budget year. And likewise, we've highlighted the changes from last year in red. And the first item that you'll see in account 169 is part-time personnel. And we're not asking for new people, we're just asking to help pay more. Right now, we're only paying $10 an hour, but we're having a hard time competing. So we'd like to ask y'all if we could pay them $12 an hour. We do, like the mayor said, have the kayaks that they do appreciate that, and they will use those to investigate the streams that we have to look at every year for TDEC. So that's one item that we're wanting to up a little bit. The next one is we do have a 321 line item, engineering services in stormwater. Now this is for engineering and professional services. Two areas that I would like to ask a little money just to have in budget would be to do some more Dr. Ogden dye tracings. So these sinkhole areas, if Dr. Ogden, he will put dye in, he'll put tracings out, and we can map which way the groundwater flows. And we found that this is very helpful in these sinkhole watershed basins that we have, because that gives us an indication that what sinkholes are connected to what other sinkholes. And like I'll try to get off my drainage soapbox, but in these sinkhole watersheds, you can have a rainfall in one end of this sinkhole watershed, not have a drop of rain on the other end, but the water will come up out of the ground where these sinkholes are connected, and they will cause flooding in another area in these sinkhole watersheds. So if we know where the connections are, that can also be another tool that we can use. And another part of that would be the state, TDEC, has really come on strong with wetland and hydric soils. So any new development comes on, we will look at the soil of the USDA layer. We have a layer from the U.S. Department of Agriculture, and the state has identified several soil types, Rowan, Dalton, Tupelo, and others, Woodmont, that are suspect hydric soils. And we will ask the developer to do a wetlands determination, a stream determination of all these critical areas that TDEC is looking out for. So all that being said, yes, that's being paid by the design engineer, the design design team, the development team is what I meant to say. But it would be beneficial to us if we could hire a third-party consultant to say, do you agree with their hydrologic determination, their wetlands determination? I don't have that level of expertise. No one on my staff does, but we were just asking for a little bit additional funds if needed. We don't expect a whole lot because we feel the work that we're receiving is acceptable, but previously we did have one development on the south side of the county. Their consultant said, okay, this is not a stream, it doesn't need certain protection. Well, the state came down and said, nope, that's a stream. So it all went out the window. They disagreed with that. But if we had the ability to hire, just on a part-time basis, a consultant to help us with those determinations, that would be beneficial to us. And then the only other change that we had from normal would be gasoline. We've upped it from $4,000 last year to $7,500 this year, but the way fuel prices are going up, we might need to bump that up some more. But all in all, that is a little over $24,000 increase from the previous budget year, which equates to an 8.65% increase from the previous budget year. So I'm sorry if I rambled, but those are the changes that we're asking for in our stormwater budget.
Thank you, Michael. Questions and comments on that budget and those
Mr. Chairman?
requests? Yes, Phil.
I know that re-looking at the dye trace studies is a great idea and a very good investment. The studies that were done previously, the folks that were involved are aging out.
Yes.
And I know that recently we've encountered some issues where people involved recalled where some sinkholes tied in, and if those people were no longer engaged, we would have lost that information. It's kind of a brain drain in people involved in that. So restudying or adding new basins to that would be a great idea.
Yes, sir. We study that, and then we share that information with the city of Murfreesboro, and there is they've created an actual dye tracing map on their GIS gallery that you can trace, or you can look at where one sinkhole connects to another, which has been valuable for us in our evaluations of new developments.
So I support that. On the other hand, adding another layer of JD or HD consultation when developers are already hiring professional consultants, I do have a problem with second guessing the report of a hired professional and the county saying, well, let's go get a second opinion. Help me understand that one. I do not support that.
I don't have that level of training.
Why would you question the report coming from, if you're handed a report from a licensed engineer who's done a JD study, why would you question it?
Well, you have to know what they're talking about. I mean, one thing. So I do have a limited skill in doing some of this evaluation, but it's a long, drawn-out process that you have to take, months and months of training. You have to become certified. They test you on your classification of certain features. We don't have that in-house. So that's all I'm asking for, is to have the ability to hire a third person to evaluate, a third party to evaluate that.
That's if a report came in and you felt it suspicious? You were suspicious of the report?
Yes.
And you would not trust the professional engineer who
Yes.
presented that report?
I have seen reports that were wrong, that have come back.
The repercussions of that, I thought that particular individual has been reprimanded and is no longer submitting reports in this county.
Well, I don't know about that. So if we see that individual submit reports, it raises red flags to me.
Okay, forgive me, but I just want to be careful that the county picks and chooses which professional reports that have been paid for by professional consultants to go second guess or second check. I just want to be careful with that.
Yes, sir. Right. And like I said, it's a delicate situation because, Walnut Chase is one example. It got rezoned for, a few hundred lots, and it came back that a vast section of that development was wetland soil, and they could not develop it unless they mitigated that, which means they would have to go out and buy credits in a wetland bank somewhere else, or just not develop it. So that impacted that development pretty substantially. So, like I said, when we do look at an initial evaluation of a piece of property, we do have, some skill. We look at what TDEC has identified as hydric soils in Rutherford County. They've got a list of 10 or 12 soil types. So if we see one of these soil types, we'll say, hey, wait a minute, time out. This might be some wetland soil. You need to get a consultant to evaluate that. So we're asking for, a third party to back that up. But I see your point. Yes, sir.
That point being made, if the mayor agrees, I would make a motion to accept this budget and pass it on to the budget committee.
I do agree.
I kind of want to jump in on this conversation for a second, and I want to point out that the engineers that are working for the developers have a vested interest in maximizing profit and lots. Okay, it's his interest and our interest to make sure that these lots are not flooding.
Right.
Now, I'll give you an example. You drive out Highway 96 and look to your right, you'll see a big pond in the middle of a field that's got a bunch of stakes in it. And if that's not enough, you can turn right at Compton Road off 96 and go up about a mile, and on your right, you'll see another little parcel of land there for sale that's got stakes lotted out for a building, and half of those stakes are underwater. And I can go on. There's quite a bit more of them, but part of his job is to ensure that these guys have not made a mistake. Now, I'm not saying anybody is intentionally trying to be
yes, sir.
slide one around the corner, but it's in our best interest and the citizens' interest that he's diligent in checking these. And if he wasn't, he doesn't need to be doing the job he's doing.
Right, and that's what I tell everybody. I'm the engineer for the existing residents and the future residents that are moving in this area. So I do everything I can. I can't say it again. I hate buyouts. I don't want to have another buyout. So we're being overly protective of any suspect area, whether it be wetlands or sinkholes or any kind of flood hazard. We're very diligent.
I concur. That's why I made the motion to approve without any transitions. Just keep an eye out.
All right, we have a motion and a second. We ready to vote? All right, Rachel, do roll call.
Commissioner Sereno?
Yes.
Commissioner P?
Yes.
Commissioner Piercy?
Yes.
Commissioner Harris?
Yes.
Commissioner Dodd?
Yes.
Commissioner Blair?
Yes.
Chairman Cush?
Yes.
All right, thank y'all.
All right, Michael and Doug, thank you.
Yes, sir, thank you.
All right. All right, Bishop, you're on your way up. Been quite a week for you. Care to elaborate? We're all ears, but we are ready for the landfill report.
Good evening, Commissioners and Chair, Mayor. Yeah, I'll elaborate a little bit on my week before I dive into the report. I've lost my administrative assistant this week, so I've been scrambling to try to figure out how to do administrative duties. So I do not have a budget to present this evening to you. I'm not on the agenda for that, and I didn't have it. I have met with the mayor and with finance. I should have that next month to you, so bear with me. I will go with my report, and then I'll probably have a few other things to add after. So we'll start with landfill. Landfill accepted 125.61 tons for an intake of $3,777. There was 54.66 tons accepted free from the county. That would be $1,139.80 that was accepted free. We accepted 1,746 total tires. We took in, with the convenience centers and the school collection, 1,960.32 tons of garbage, municipal solid waste. We gathered 382.2 tons of recycling. That puts our diversion rate at 19.5% for the month of February. It's 5.5% lower than our target goal. So disposal is still high, and recycling is creeping up from last month. Are there any questions about those reports before I get into the rest of?
Go ahead.
So this week, some of you received, well, all of you received an email from my office on Sunday afternoon. I came in to a call from my weekend driver saying that we were in a sad state with the amount of disposal over the weekend at our centers, and I had to close 3 centers over the weekend early. That is an unacceptable consequence of what's going on with the heavy amount of disposal, this lingering driver shortage situation that we've been in, and just as my colleagues before were discussing, the realities that come with this exponential growth that this county has been experiencing on a model that's based off of collection at convenience centers. We have to really, as leaders of the community, we need to look forward as to how are we going to manage these materials in a way that adequately reflects the amount of people that we serve. At the model that I have walked into, and of course, we're not going to even address the driver shortage, which I am working on. I've hired 3 drivers in the last month, 2 of which are on the road and driving now, and another one starts Thursday, who's been on the landfill in another capacity and should be quick after everything, and on the road servicing the community. The reality of the situation is this. I have 14 convenience centers located throughout the county that serve 340,000 citizens. And at any given operating day, I may have at maximum 7 drivers available to do that. Driving across a county that has the traffic issues that we have going from the south side of the county to the north side of the county, a turn at the landfill can be anywhere up to 3 hours from the time I pick up to the time I return back to go drop off that container. So in a 10-hour day per week, you do the math. We can't keep up. The containers get full, the disposal rates continue to increase, and we're wearing down our equipment, we're wearing down our people, and we can buy more trucks, we can put more drivers in those vehicles. The growth is going to continue to increase. I was privy to a presentation the week before last from the Greater National Regional Council that showed projections of population rate going into the 2035, and we need to be taking those projections seriously. We're dealing with a model that's over 30 years old, that was built when we had 56,000 people in the county, and with 340,000 people in the county, it's unsustainable. So the mayor's office and I have been in discussion since I've taken office, or taken my position here. Excuse me, it's not an office. Some people would say it looks like an office when I'm in there. But with priority on diversion to reduce the amount of material that we are forced to dispose by taking recycling, increasing recycling rates, trying to get the amount of material that we're not having to transport to a landfill, to increase that by any means possible. There are some technologies that we've investigated and we've discussed before that have become available for us to reduce volumes to the material that we do have to take to the landfill that will help us out some. But one of the larger, more exciting things that I would like to say is that there is a company in East Tennessee, Eastman Chemical Company, that has found a technology to repolymerizing plastic. It's a very intriguing technology that will accept plastics, plastic carpet, all plastics that we collect at our centers, other plastic-based materials with disregard to type or style. They are able to take. You don't have to have them super clean when you send them out there. There are several benefits to engaging in this activity. Now, this activity will require the thought and the planning and the building and acquisition of a recovery and transportation facility. Now, some of you will remember the RFP process where that was brought up. There was one company that had applied in through the RFP process for recycling cardboard and fiber materials, Pratt. We are interested in engaging deeper in conversations with Pratt to see if there's something that they would like to do to work in conjunction with us on these. We are also interested in including other outside entities that would be interested in going forward with trying to increase the ability to collect and manage plastic facilities. Yes.
When you refer to we, who are you referring to?
We, the Department of Solid Waste.
Thank you.
Yes, sir.
I have a question. So if I'm hearing you correct, you're saying you're struggling right now with drivers and trash and all that, right?
Absolutely.
So we have a presentation tonight from a company that is the landfill. So if they're not here anymore, how are you going to deal with that when you had to ship it 80 miles away? Are you going to be prepared for that?
The truth is, no.
Okay.
We are not prepared if a landfill closes today to be able to manage waste. I cannot handle 340,000 citizens worth of waste and carry it to a landfill that's 80 miles away and be able to keep up with the demand and volume that we have. That being said, landfill here or not there, the gentleman in the back, we need to be prepared for eventualities. And as the solid waste director for this county, I think it's prudent for me to say that we need to be looking at how do we manage those materials should that eventuality happen. The Solid Waste Regional Board has recently made a decision on something that's still in litigation concerning the expansion. But the reality is, no matter how long a landfill lasts or it expands, the issue that this decision that was made 30 years ago can last another 30 years at this rate, I don't believe that's a reality that we can dance with anymore. We need to be looking at how do we manage our waste like counties that don't have free disposal agreements. How do we plan best for our community? Tough questions. And I'm looking to you leaders to try to help me come up with solutions for that, because quite frankly, the things that I've seen in the just at 4 months that I've been in this job show that we are in dire need in every area from infrastructure to equipment to personnel. We are so underprepared for the 340,000 citizens that we have to serve.
Mr. Chairman.
Yes.
Maybe this is a misspeak, maybe not, but a minute ago, when you were enumerating the problems, you mentioned a disposal rate increase. I'm not aware of a disposal rate increase. Enlighten me.
There is, you get data every month from us on our disposal, and it is increasing at a rate of about 2.2% per quarter. This,
You're talking about our costs.
no, I'm
He's talking about the amount.
the amount of garbage that gets brought up. So it is, the curve is definitely going up. Some months are heavier than others. We've got a couple flat periods that are in there. But I mean, the typical rate and the rate that when I had my former job with the state was about 1.1 tons per person per year. We are increasing that in this county, but that's not this county alone. This is a general trend that's happening all across the state.
Well, I understand that the amount of garbage that we're getting has increased. But I thought you said our disposal rates have increased. And as far as I know, these guys back here are still giving us free tipping.
No, not rate meaning money, rate of increase.
Amount of trash.
Increase, yes. A statistical term. Not fees or funds.
So, as you can tell, Bishop has reached DEPCON 1 and needs some help, both in personnel, since he's lost his right-hand person, but when it rains, it pours. So I don't have a really good answer for him, but we collectively have to help. Mayor?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Members of the committee, we talked quite frequently yesterday, today. He interviewed a lady who previously she had experience working in county government. She left for a period of time, take off some time with the family. She had 18 years, something like that? 19 years with the county.
She doesn't know that she's high consideration, but
well, okay.
hey, you might have got the job.
But he's well, I hope she's not watching it. But he feels comfortable with who he's been talking to hire someone. In the meantime, I've talked to Lisa. Lisa said to bring, because there was invoices, purchase orders, et cetera, that should have come to me to sign off on, that had been laying there well past 30 days, had been aging. Orders that should have been taken care of, aging. You know, you hate when you lose, but sometimes things happen for a reason. And when you lose a key personnel like that, but you know, it's starting from scratch. I know he's by himself and feeling kind of lonely right now, but Lisa has volunteered to bring all the paperwork up to her, and she will help process all of that and try to get him back to square one so he can continue to operate, get the new drivers in, get them trained, but still going to need some additional help from this committee from a fiscal standpoint, Mr. Chairman.
Bishop, continue on.
Well, and I didn't want to just belay a tale of woe, but I feel like as the decision makers in this public works that I wanted you to know the reality that I live in. We have attendant shelters that are in various state of disrepairs. You all are at the convenience centers. We did go before finance, or before it was purchasing committee. Got to keep me straight on this. I'm learning this too. Bear with me. And we had the bid. We did have a successful bid. I would like to discuss with you, if you wish, from Perry Construction on the construction of 4 convenience centers, which are also a needed infrastructure in the county. The combined total of the bid from Perry comes in at $5,864,867. Then for the 4 convenience centers, that are located Rockvale, Weekly Lane, the Walter Hill community by Landfill Road, and excuse me, Leanna. Leanna, thank you.
Mr. Chairman.
Yes, sir.
Mr. Chairman, members of the committee, so this is, we've been working on this for 3 years, and now we have 4 moving forward, finally put it out to bid. Leanna should have been taken care of 2.5 years ago. We actually bought the boxes, and I think you were fooled when you were at TDEC that we actually had hooked up those dumpsters to get the $100,000 grant, and then we went out there and hooked them up. So the inspector from TDEC, when he was at TDEC, came by and approved it, and then we unhooked them and took them out to the landfill. So we've been working on this for quite some time. Unfortunately, over the course of the last year, the pricing of everything that we're doing in these sites have increased dramatically. So that's why you're seeing most of these at about 1.5 million. So 2 will be relocated. One at Walter Hill. We're going up the road. I talked to Middle Tennessee Electric today. Ran into those guys, and they said they should be through with running the 3-phase up to your location up Landfill Road, so we can get started on that one. And then Smyrna will be relocating as well, moving from the existing site, trying to, we'll take that down to G Street, and both of those will eliminate a lot of that traffic. He feels like, Mr. Perry feels like that he can get all 4 of these done within 10 months. And then we have Leanna and Rockvale. Rockvale will be on 2 sides of the road at that location. So Mr. Perry was the only one that turned in a bid, and so I come for you tonight with his with solid waste director to request that funding be taken from the fund balance of assigned for public health and welfare under 34,730. In that line item, we currently have 11,356,000, and so this total would come from that balance. That will need to go to finance next Thursday night and then to the full commission. Mr. Perry's ready to get started.
I'm going to make a motion to approve this and forward it to budget.
All right. Roll call that. Rachel? Any discussion on that, by the way?
Just a quick, just remind us how much equipment, is there any equipment in this?
It's compactor receivers for we have some equipment on the ground for the Leanna Center, which has been there for quite some time. So that center is over. The rest of we have gates, privacy fences, their sewer systems, all of the pavement, the traffic signs, all of the concrete stuff, the pads.
Outside of Leanna, there's no new equipment.
There's no equipment in
this. We're just using what we currently have.
Yes.
Thank you.
That new equipment that you got, does that include the higher capacity compactors that you discussed?
No, sir.
No, sir. That's something that I've had.
We'll come back to you and show you those high capacity crushers.
All right, Rachel.
Commissioner Piercy,
Yes.
Right there.
Commissioner Harris. Yes. Commissioner P,
Yes.
Commissioner Dodd,
Yes.
Commissioner Sereno,
Yes.
Commissioner Blair,
Yes.
Chairman Cush.
Yes. All right. Sure.
Thank you.
We listened to all the problems. Now you tell me where you need help from us, the worst first.
The worst first.
Can I step in without y'all getting mad at him? He asked me today, and and I knew it was going to be a tough ask, but it's something in order for him to catch up. How many boxes you got on the ground? 111?
111 yesterday, I think we're at, we picked up 23 today.
So by the time that they get to the landfill, we've got limited drivers. They get to the landfill, they're sitting on the landfill premises in line to dump. That's taking 2 hours. So he actually, and I kind of squirmed when he said this, but he thinks that if we could close all of our convenience centers for 2 days and get caught up. You know, phone calls are going to come if we close for 2 days.
The last thing that I want to do ever in this role is to close these convenience centers, because that restricts the ability for our citizens to dispose of their garbage.
You're already closed on Mondays, so why couldn't you use a Monday and a Tuesday and just close them one day, one extra day?
So if I have over 100 containers on the ground and I'm getting 25 to 30 containers maximum picked up a day, it's going to require me to have 4 days of continued closures. Now, I want to be for the record that the last 2 days, not to our partners in the back there from Republic Services, the landfill has been running pretty decent. But, you know, the landfill's running is not the only problem in this. I mean, we have traffic to contend with too, just getting across the city to service these. So the rate at which we can dispose of these isn't, you know, there's not just one stick of dynamite here. This is a death by 1,000 cuts, and it's just an overall adjustment to growth. But, you know, I'm going to stand up here and be honest with you. We clean these out, and we can get, right now, if you go to every center that you go in this county, you drive around tonight, tomorrow morning, you're going to see open tops that are full everywhere. Our number one priority when we're dumping our garbage is we have to get the municipal solid waste out of the compactors first, because that's the stuff that generates the vectors. It's the odor causer. It's the nasty stuff. We get those containers up off the ground. You know, I think we'll be able to keep up, especially with the drivers, for a little while longer. But, you know, the big problem here is not going away. We're growing faster than these centers can manage.
You let the weather
First
pick
thing.
up.
Sorry, Steve's still going on.
First thing, relax. All right? We will help you.
No, I got it.
I promise.
It's hard, I tell you
You
what.
got to relax. I understand. And like you said, DEFCON 1, I think you're at 3. But
One's the worst, isn't it? Four's the worst?
Well, then I'm
But anyway,
375.
so for us to get these 111 boxes out, to get rid of this, and we'll take a beating on this, I know, you're needing to shut down every center for 2 days?
I need to shut down every center for 2 operating days. I would reopen today's Tuesday, I'd reopen on Friday.
Okay, so that would get rid of everything.
I hope. That's the goal. I mean, I can't promise you that that's what'll get rid of everything, because
Tell me what will get rid of it.
I run until every can is clean. That's because some days I can get 20 cans, some days I can get 35 cans, and the minute that I get a report that my containers are clean and that I've got every open top in there, my intention is let's open. There is another thing that happens in the operation here, and is that we are open on Sundays. Sundays, the landfill is not open. So all of the garbage that I generate, now we don't take open top garbage on Sundays, but we take from, you know, we're open till on Saturdays from 7 in the morning to 3, 7:30 to 3, and then we're open the same hours on Sundays. We're collecting garbage all that time, but at 11 o'clock, the landfill's open. Now, Mr. Clausen has offered that when we get an emergency status, I could reach out to him to get a few more hours maybe on the Saturdays, but Sundays they're closed.
What is your biggest day of collecting?
Sunday.
Sunday?
Saturdays and Sundays are the biggest
So
days.
Monday's a pretty big problem.
Monday's a huge problem because I'm catching up from a weekend full of stockpiling. And then when we get into Tuesday, like was today, while we're operating today, when we're behind on Monday and we don't even, so I've got a laydown area that I can put down things on Sunday that go to the landfill first thing on Monday morning. Operationally, you want to have that we call it the hill yard, you want that cleaned off first thing so that all that garbage is off the ground and on the landfill, and then you start to service the 14 convenience centers and the recycling center. We can run through that. So in the last 2 weeks, we've ran through that, and we haven't gotten, and hitting the packers that are open on, compactors, excuse me, that are open on Monday, or on Tuesdays, we're still sitting with cans on the ground from the hill yard. We have to return to the hill yard when we can't get containers up, or when a compactor calls in and I've got a driver that's got a loaded compactor that has to go get an empty to swap out so that we can continue to collect. So it's a juggling act at best just to keep the centers flowing. This weekend, what happened Sunday was we completely ran out of containers that didn't have garbage in them. Every container that I have in the county that we have was completely full of garbage. My hill yard was completely full, everything I had.
So your hill yard's full right now?
Yes.
So we got to do something right now.
Yep.
So you're saying if we close 2 days, starting when?
I say if my trucks are running just garbage tomorrow, Wednesday, Thursday is an off day. Friday, I would hope we could have all of that listed, but I'm telling you, it's a lot of garbage. So we may be Saturday morning. But I would love to be able to give you an absolute number on how long it's going to take me to get all those containers, but it's much like the whole rolling closure deal is that, and the reason why I have 7 that are still on the alternate schedules is that when I reopen a center, I don't want to have to reclose it. But when I opened the last 2 centers that we opened, the smaller centers, we hit the tipping point again with our ability to collect.
Question for the mayor, Mr. Chairman. Mayor Ketchum.
Yes, sir.
Process, if we as a committee make a motion to close these centers for 2 days, what is the process of that? And the reason I ask you that is because we have to inform the public.
We do.
At least 7 days before anything that we do. So this would go, so are you going to be able to survive this week? Can't do that until next week.
We'll be able to survive, but I may be faced to have to close centers like we did on Sunday. If we run out of compactors and I can't get everything dumped out, right now my guys are working from, my earliest starts at 4 a.m. and he didn't stop until, I'm sorry. I had a guy that started at 4 a.m. and he didn't stop until 4 p.m. this afternoon. They're running 10, 11, 12-hour days to try to keep up, purely voluntary, just because they want to get the garbage off the ground as much as everybody does.
So, Mr. Mayor.
Yes, sir.
Do we have the authority to enact this right now, to close these centers until Friday?
That's I think I would have to ask Nick, get a legal opinion. I think that I would have that in the event of an emergency. I have that ability to do that. However, I don't think it would be, I don't think it would be in our best interest to do that. I think we need to notify people properly and let them know, just to hang on to their stuff, put it in the back of their pickup truck or sit it outside if it starts stinks. We need to notify them in any way possible through our website, through our emails, etc., and give proper notice that we're going to do this, because trash is a stinky thing, man. It's just, and people get more upset when your wife tells you to take the trash down to the dump or the convenience center and you come back with it. It's not going to be pretty when we do this.
I know that. I know it's going to be horrible, but we got to do something. We got 111 boxes in the Hilliard, and we got to do something on that. So,
yes, sir.
Can you please find out what we can do as a committee, as commissioners, to see if we can help this problem? Because what's going to happen, Mr. Mayor, he's going to have to close down anyway. He won't be able to have any open tops or anything because we don't have any boxes. Is that correct?
Yes, sir, that's correct.
I don't think this would have to go to budget, but I think that we probably need to take it to full commission, and that's not till next week. And can he make it that long?
One second.
That gives us enough for legal time.
I will say that my staff and myself will do whatever we can to avoid that from happening, what happened on Sunday. However, Saturdays and Sundays are really tough. I might ask for some extra help from our partners in the back to help us, if that's possible for them to do, because that would help out a bunch. But the reality is that it's going to take some work from all of our partners to try to get that happening.
Hold your thought 1 second. Rachel has informed me we did not approve his reports, so really quickly, I need a motion and a second to approve his reports.
Move to approve his report.
Second.
Okay, all those in favor? All right. Now, Steve, let's finish your comment that you started, then we'll go to P and then Blair.
I asked you what we could do to help you the best first.
Yes, sir.
But I have comments before I want you to answer that. Close the convenience centers for 4 days and you empty all your containers. When you open it back up, the general public is going to fill all your containers right back full the very first day. So I don't feel like that's going to be a solution. Then you must notify the public somehow. You can't just shut it down tomorrow and say, hey, we're not taking. They'll fill this courthouse full of people and probably trash. You're going to have to notify them before you do it. So, I have no solution for you. You might try some of the other counties and see if they have empty containers we could borrow for a few days. You might try your neighbors across the street. They might loan you a few containers. Don't know. I can't answer that for a long shot, but won't hurt to ask. Now tell me how we can help you as a committee first. Your first worst thing.
As a committee, I think the biggest thing that could help me is for you to help by communicating with your constituents in your districts, to let them know what's going on here with solid waste. I think a lot of the calls that I get throughout the week are just, and the majority of them, once we let them know what's going on, they understand why they can't access that center. I think that's a huge thing for me. Is I think the public needs to know the state of solid waste management here in Rutherford County it's important to pay attention to. I think I probably got 50 calls into the office today about mattress disposal. Mattresses they're big, they are recoverable. I've actually been speaking with a man that runs a company in Nashville, Spring Back, that recycles those. That I was hoping that in calmer times to discuss that option. But it's things like that I think the general Rutherford County citizen, when they know what's happening when they go to dispose of something, I think they want to do the right thing. But a lot of them don't understand that that's why that gate's closing. Is I can't allow that garbage to get put on the ground. I do not want garbage to get thrown on the sides of the roads, and I'm limited as to the outreach. I mean, I'll reach probably more citizens at one shot in this Public Works meeting than I will in my Facebook postings or any of the media outlets that we do when we try to get that information out. As we've done the rolling closures and the reopenings, I've tried to give 48 hours notice when we were opening them back up to give the citizens enough time. But I think your concern about when we close and when we reopen that we'll get inundated in garbage is accurate. That I would expect that volume to come in heavy from everybody that stockpiled their garbage and wait for that. And so there is no pretty solution, but the reality is my containers are full today, and that in order to, I've got staff that are pushed to the brink, that are trying to do, my equipment is pushed to the brink, that in order to try to get over this hill, I'm open for any suggestion that would work.
I've got one more.
Yes, sir.
I was watching some of the news this morning before I left to go to work, and I saw where Waste Management had stepped in and was helping Nashville get a lot of their containers picked up off the sides of the streets, their household trash. You might contact them and see if they would loan you a few containers for a few days to keep our places open.
I think that may be in a breach of our contract that we have with our disposal with Republic Services.
Container's a container.
Mr. Chairman?
Yes, yeah. Go ahead. Your comment first.
Yeah, well,
Rank me.
well, I did see that with Waste Management, and then I talked to Mayor Cooper this morning, and they are doing that because the company went bankrupt, Red Bank, or whatever they're called. But let me ask this question. What if we paid our drivers time and a half until we can get through this crisis?
Well, I know they definitely appreciate it. They deserve it. They've been working like this.
Then I guess my next question would be, could we talk to our neighbors next door and see if they could help accommodate us if we're willing to come in and pay those drivers time and a half?
I'm willing to ask them. I mean, we'll keep them here late. We've got locks for the doors.
I guess the real question, the direct question is, could you ask your leadership if they could open on a Sunday to get us over this hump? I don't really. Yeah. Right. Come on.
Come on up.
Okay. We'll call you up in just a second. Okay. Okay. Robert.
Of course, my convenience centers are some of them that are being closed unannounced. And that's the main problem that I've got. I'm tired of going over to a convenience center that's scheduled to be open. When I get there, there's a chain on the gate, and there's no note on the door, and there's no email in my box, which we've already had this discussion, and Bishop is committed to letting us know ahead of time when that happens. And I understand his frustration. I've told him myself, yes, I will help you however I can, and I recommit to that. One thing I do want to ask about, if you close this and where you have been closing, is our employees. You've had problems getting employees to work these convenience centers, and if you're shutting them down and then not paying them for that time you're shut down, I got a problem with that, and I know they would have. I want to know, if you decide you're going to shut down these couple of days, are you going to have something for these guys to do so you can continue their pay?
So yes, actually, and even since we've doing rolling closures, the option for every employee that I have, part-time employee, to work their shift at one of the open convenience centers, even if it's an extra person there cleaning up, has been there and available. What I would use the convenience center attendants for in the event of us having to close to clean out was for them to go around the centers and clean up litter and debris, identify, just do some of the things that, quite frankly, they're not able to do when they've got car after car after car coming in, to try to keep that up. But I definitely wouldn't send them home while we're collecting.
Well, we decide that we're going to shut down for a couple of days to let you get caught up. One thing that I want is this posted at the convenience centers. If it's a handwritten poster board, I don't care, as long as it's posted there so people know ahead of time, hey, don't come Thursday and Friday or whatever day it ends up being. I prefer you not shut down Saturday and Sunday, because that's the convenient day that people that are working Monday through Friday is the only chance they have to go to the convenience center to dump their trash. Because we're shutting down at 4:30, Most people are not home by that time, so they don't have the opportunity, and they can't do it in the mornings because they're not open till 9. So, you cut off Saturday and Sunday, yes, you're going to have a pile of garbage when you do reopen. So I would suggest you try to work around them those days, and you let people know ahead of time. I think those are the most important things. And yes, you're right. When people have called me, I've explained to them, what the ongoing problem is. But I'll throw you a little history out there. Having been a volunteer firefighter, it's not near as bad as it used to be. When I say that, we had garbage cans sitting out in the county in different places. We didn't have manned convenience centers, but we had a lot of fire calls because people would get frustrated when they were full and they'd burn them. And then somebody'd have to go over and put them out to keep it from spreading off into some neighbor's field. So things have increased or improved quite a bit since those days. So, you don't have that going on right now.
Wayne?
Just 3 thoughts that I had. First one was possibly only taking kitchen and household trash. Don't allow any open box. I think that's what we had to do back during Christmas COVID. I don't know if that would give you a chance to catch up, but my other thought, did I not receive something from you regarding a new smashing process that would
Yes, you
increase
did.
the amount of volume or bulk?
Yes, you did. And those compactors, I've reached out to them. I have got quotes back from them, and I have included them in the budget I've yet to present for the 4 new centers.
And my third thought was, rather than closing everything, we have 14 centers, right? Maybe in a pre-announced closing for 7 of them, get caught up with those, and that way people can still go somewhere during that time frame, come back and close another 7 and get caught up. And again, they'll be visiting the other ones, but again, schedule it and pre-announce it. Maybe that solves some of your problem rather than the pain of closing all of them at one time.
Well, and the rolling closures, that's what we did. So when I had one closed, the next closest center was to be open on that day. Currently, we have 7 that are open full-time, and then 7 of the 14 are still on that rolling closure schedule. The purpose of that was to reduce the collection points. The volume doesn't change, it just ends up flowing to another area that changes it allows me to send multiple drivers to one spot to clear out a center quicker. It's kind of like pushing back water with a broom. It works in the short period, but it's long-term, hasn't been working, and we get that flow from those other centers. I would say that we need to open all of the centers back to their regular hours. That's what the goal is here, to have every center available to every citizen the way that they need it to be. My fear and the reason why I haven't opened all of the others is when I opened the last 3 small centers together, we hit a tipping point to where we started to spiral back into this situation. So, but I do have a few more drivers now than I had when we did make that decision. So now it's a matter of let's do what we can do to get caught up and get ahead of it, so that we can try to stay ahead of it. But that's I try not to speak in finites when it comes to stuff like this, because eventually stuff happens, it comes up, but I want to be honest with you, as I always will be, as long as I'm in this department, when it comes to the state of solid waste, so that you can help me with the decisions we have to make for the citizens.
Thank you, Bishop, for the sobering reality of where we are. Any more questions for Bishop? All right, did we get all his reports approved? Okay. All right, Republic, How about you? Yes, Wayne. 5 minute? 2 minute? 2 minutes it is, while you guys come up and get prepped. All right, I'm going to call us back in session, please. Yeah, thank you. Thank you. We have one little bit of business to do before we hear our presentation from public. Chairman P., you have the floor.
Thank you. We didn't decide anything before we took this break as far as what we've got going on at the landfill, trying to get caught up. So I'd like to...
Your mic on?
It is. I'm a little hoarse today, but anyway, I want to make a motion that we authorize the mayor to allow Bishop to close for up to 2 days if it's deemed for emergency situations, so we can help our guys get caught up.
All right. We have a motion to give the mayor the power to, in an emergency situation, to close the convenience centers to allow us to get over this critical condition we're in. Do we have a second? We have a second. All those, any discussion?
With giving me that authority, I would hope that it would be with giving proper notice to the public.
Yeah. Right.
Yes, that was understood. Like I said, I want poster boards or whatever it is, but I want people to know ahead of time.
Yes. Yeah. And Bishop assured we also have the signage available to put those out at the gates at minimum. So all those in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? All right, motion passes. All right, gentlemen, come on up and introduce yourselves to the viewing public, and then tell us what we're going to hear tonight.
Good evening. It certainly is a pleasure to be back in front of you again here. So I'm going to start by saying thanks for the opportunity. I know at a prior meeting several months ago, you had asked for us to come and kind of talk about some of the issues at hand, some of the progress we're making. I'm Mike Klassen, for those of you that I haven't had the privilege to meet so far. I'm the general manager of Middle Point Landfill. Have been started in this role almost exactly a year ago to the day. And I have with me...
Happy anniversary.
Thank you. Yeah. No place I'd rather be.
Good evening, Commissioners, Mr. Mayor, Mr. Chairman. My name is Brad Kiesling. I'm Director of Government Affairs for Republic Services. I'm here today from Phoenix to support Mike and to answer any questions that you all might have once the presentation is over. So again, thank you for the opportunity.
So we've prepared a short presentation really hitting on what I believe to be the main topics in talking with you all and your constituents. And from listening to you, really that's offsite odors, expansion, aluminum waste reaction. So we're going to hit on those three main topics. And of course, then we're here as long as you'd like to answer questions or listen to you and move from there. So as I hope you've seen from our prior interactions, limited though they may be, I'm going to speak candidly about waste disposal in the community in some areas of improvement and really hopefully let you see what's going on behind the fence here at Middle Point. So just to start off, a little bit of background context overview. So I know I'm going to try not to throw out a lot of jargon as we get into some of these technical topics. So you all know Middle Point well. Really what we're talking about today is focusing first and foremost on landfill gas. Because really when we talk about odors, what we're talking about is landfill gas. So gas collection at a landfill facility. Excuse me one second. So as waste decomposes naturally, what it produces is landfill gas. It's a series of about 142 different types of materials that are all comprised in what we call landfill gas. The primary component of that is natural gas. It's in the pipelines, the same thing that comes to our homes and heats our water heaters and all of that. What we do, the whole game of managing odors is collect as much of that gas as possible so you reach a threshold where you're collecting it so it doesn't just escape into the environment. Not to oversimplify, but that's really all there is to it. So what we do is we apply, think of it like an interstate highway system. So we have a series of header pipes, we call them, which are like your interstates. Connected to those are what we call laterals. Those are like the side streets, and those all connect into assets within the landfill itself where we apply vacuum. We literally have a giant gas-moving equipment that we suck on and apply vacuum to the well field to pull all that gas out and send it to on-site flares where we combust that material into a more environmentally acceptable outcome. So we talk about fugitive emissions. Those are the emissions that can contribute to offsite odors if and when it's not captured. So really what we're trying to do here, eliminating our potential for, I've never had great success with this clicker. So what we're trying to do is, in eliminating the potential for offsite odor, is again, collecting and controlling our gas, control the waste odors on site so they don't escape, and then also just thinking proactively so we're reducing that potential in the future. Just looking backwards a little bit, and then I'm definitely going to talk about what's going on now. To start with, back in fall of 2020, when we really started putting a significant investment into the rehabilitation and growth and expansion of our landfill gas collection and control system. At that time, we originally replaced about 40 total wells, which again are those collection points where we're applying vacuum to the decomposing waste. Also, what we did in 2020 was we installed the gas moving equipment. Think of it like the backbone or the engine or the heartbeat that drives the ability to pull gas out. So we started with building blocks. Doesn't really do any good to have a lot of places where you can collect gas if you don't have the proper road system, the interstate highway system, to move the gas and the engine to pump it. So again, that was the fall of 2020. Then in 2021, and this is about the last time I saw y'all, which was, I think, May of 2021, we were in the middle of a $2.8 million investment into an additional expansion of our gas system. What we saw there was an immediate drop in odor reports, so beginning in about 2021 until completion. So in February versus in July, August of last year, we actually saw a 90% reduction in odors that were reported to us. So different from the system that the city of Murfreesboro uses, we have our own odor reporting app that's through our website that neighbors in the community use to submit to us when they detect an odor, tell us about the content of that odor, how intense it is, and then we follow up with that. So we have our own data that we're actually tracking those odors as they come in. And again, so over the course of the last year and a half, really, what we saw in middle of last year was actually a pretty significant success in our gas collection capabilities and in the performance of our system. Oops, apologize for this clicker. So the results from that project were, as I said, we sort of bolstered the backbone of our gas collection system, allowed us to more efficiently capture gas and larger quantities. Additionally, we significantly increased our ability to remove liquid from the waste mass. And we're going to talk about some of these things a little bit more specifically here in a second. But when you think about liquid and gas really counteract each other. If you think about if you have a straw in a glass that's full of air, you can suck on that no problem. But if you have that straw in a glass full of water, there's no way you can pull air through it, right? So a lot of times when there's waste that has saturation with liquid, you're unable to pull gas from the waste mass. So that project in 2020 and 21 significantly increased our ability to remove liquid from the waste mass and added gas collection infrastructure to some of the newer disposal areas. So that takes us kind of through the fall of 2021. So I know you all have seen this and heard this from your constituents as well. Apologies for that text being a little small, but we'll talk through it. So what this graph shows is you'll see there the bars are the number of odor reports that we got through our system, and the line graph is gas flow. Again, as we talked about before, they're inversely related. Higher gas flow, we know the potential for offsite odors is reduced. Therefore, we would expect to see a reduction in odor reports. So starting in January of 21, and leading up through about September of 21, we saw an increase in our gas flow that we collected, removed from the landfill, and sent to our flares of about 68%. So that investment that we made last year was working. You see that bullet number 2 there on the blue line. So in between about September and October timeframe, we started to see gas flows gradually declining. Work immediately began to diagnose the location and cause of that, and what we ultimately did was settled on a header pipe that we were aware of that had been compromised under settling waste. It's really important to note that Landfills are extremely dynamic environments. They are constantly shifting and moving. We're constantly placing waste on top of it, and that's natural. It's expected. Sometimes components of your gas system fail, and you plan for that. In this case, it just failed a little bit sooner than we anticipated. So work immediately began, and that's bullet number 3 there, as you see sort of our gas flow dropping in late October and odor reports increasing. We started a high priority installation of a new gas header pipe to replace the one that we identified as being compromised. At that time, unfortunately, and this is what happens sometimes, this is like peeling an onion sometimes when you get into facilities like ours. What that did was simply revealed that the gas header that we replaced was not actually the source of the loss of gas flow, but it allowed us to see exactly where that loss of gas flow was coming from. And I have a couple slides here to really show it in some pictures of what was happening there. So in December, early December, and it was the day after Thanksgiving, that Monday, we initiated a new strategy for 2 things. One, initiated a new strategy for rapid collection of gas as we fill. So moving away from doing just vertical gas wells, installing what we call horizontal wells, we're actually installing these pipes immediately in front of where we're placing waste, so that the second that we are done placing waste in that lift, we can turn those gas pipes on. Federal law and state law require us to install gas collection within 5 years of placing waste. And we, in the interest of being proactive and making sure we're doing everything possible to limit our potential for offsite odor, are installing it instantaneously. The other thing we started there in number 4, which would be kind of there early December, was a large-scale construction project to expand again, which we're calling Phase 1 of 2022 project. So design started then, and we saw some of the impact that the work we were doing was improving. And then there in bullet 5, which is in late January, is when work began on a $750,000 2022 Phase 1 gas construction project. That is currently under construction. We're already seeing the improvement, the reduction in odor reports, and the improvement in gas flow. We're already seeing that currently. And that project is going to be done here within about a week and a half. So we call that Phase 1, and before I talk about more, I just want to kind of go through a little bit of what specifically was happening, so you all kind of have an understanding of what was going on within our system, what we identified as the problem. So to start, just a proper gas well elevation, relatively straightforward from a well standpoint. We have vertical and horizontal wells. The vertical wells, you drill out, you literally core out the waste that's in place and decomposing, and you backfill it with rock and a pipe, and that pipe is connected to that network of headers and laterals, which is where we apply vacuum. Horizontal pipes are really horizontal wells are really the same thing. It's just a vertical pipe turned on its side, and we apply vacuum. Those are really used more for superficial collection to help minimize odors. So what we were seeing was 2 particular problems. The figure on the left is what we call watering in. So as we talked about, if you just visualize a straw in a glass that's full of water, you have no ability to suck air through that straw. So what we were seeing was some areas we had perched liquid throughout the landfill and so those, instead of being able to pull gas from them, all of those wells were being watered in. So a lot of the infrastructure that we're installing now is related to being able to pull that liquid out of the waste. If you pull the liquid out of the waste, you have to have a place to take it. And so some other improvements that we've been making to the site and continue to do is to our leachate treatment system. We're actually treating that liquid on site before we put it in the sanitary sewer. The other issue we're seeing is the figure on the right, and that is a kinked gas well. So again, as the waste is settling, you get a situation where it settles differentially. And so you can get a pinch in these gas wells, which effectively cuts off a significant portion of that gas well's ability to collect gas. Think of it as if you had perforations all up and down a straw and you pinched it at the very top and then therefore couldn't pull air through it. So that's the other thing we were seeing. Again, these are things that happen in landfills. They happen a little bit more frequently in a designated area of our facility that we just didn't have good visibility into until we did that header replacement project last fall. So to summarize kind of the action plan that we've been working on, so this is our phase 1 of 2022 action plan, and phase 1 implies there are subsequent phases happening. Really want to emphasize, if you haven't kind of told already, I really like analogies. So I think of our gas flow progress that we have right now, think of it like a stock in a bull market, right? We have upward trajectory, we have momentum in the positive direction, but it's not always. There's some ups and downs, and there's some ebb and flow to this because it is highly complex, dynamic, three-dimensional, and working with a biological environment. So there are definitely subsequent phases to this, and really when it comes to gas collection, our job is never done. So phase 1 is happening right now. We have 16 new vertical wells, almost 1,200 feet of vertical collection going in, and 5 new horizontal extraction points. Really, that work is concentrated in our 2 active cells. And just to give kind of a, let's go this way. So this is just an overall map kind of helping see what our gas collection network looks like. Those pipes around the perimeter, the black lines, those are those headers and those laterals that we talked about, which convey the extracted gas. And then all of the little black dots out there, there's over 300 that we have, are points where we're actually collecting landfill gas from the waste mass. So what this project looked like is, if you can see the black, that's all everything that was existing. And the magenta colored items are all items that are new. You can see just the density, the number of collection points per square foot, and the additional infrastructure that was installed here to really hone in on areas of the landfill where we have identified our sources of potential odors. You can see really, so north is up, you can see really just south of that where there's kind of an opening in there. And that's really where our target is going to be in phase 2, where there's not a lot of black and magenta lines crossing. Our plan is really just to take really a similar scale project to what we're doing right now. And that will be really early summer, probably is the target for us, to go back in and just continue our forward progress and infill that area as the subsequent phase this year. So the 2021 project really, again, set the foundation. These were building blocks for future enhancements. This year's project allowed us to really take a leap off of that. Again, this isn't just a one-directional process. There's going to be some ups and downs as we make up the ground that we haven't historically had here, and as we continue to improve our gas flows. Emphasizing that landfills are complex, dynamic, continuously changing, and they require really us to be proactive, always on top of identifying where those solutions are coming from, and nimble in our response. And so that's why you're seeing the phase 1, phase 2, there will be a phase 3, and we're just going to continue the appropriate investment until we fully get our arms wrapped around the potential for offsite odors here. One thing I also want to point out is, we're not really resting on just our own understanding of landfill gas systems, even though, it's what we do. It's what we do every day. It's all I've ever done is manage landfills and landfill gas systems. We're also exploring opportunities to partner with landfill gas to energy, to renewable natural gas partners, really taking some expertise from the oil and gas, from the well field industry, and bring that and apply it to renewables here. So we're exploring some partnership opportunities and looking forward to being able to finalize that here in the near future, which I think is just going to continue to bring an additional layer of expertise and capabilities to what we're doing on site when it comes to managing and collecting our landfill gas. I'm sure that there are going to be questions, so let me just run through a couple of these these are going to go quick. I know there were 2 other topics that have been, in the news and we've received some questions about. Just wanted to cover those really quickly and then open floor for any questions you have. So the first is about aluminum waste. So aluminum waste was actively received by Middle Point Landfill in the early 2000s. It was a byproduct of aluminum smelting, which was a large industry here in Tennessee. It was taken in accordance with all applicable regulations. There were many facilities, landfill facilities in the state of Tennessee and elsewhere who took this material. Sometimes what happens with that material is as it reacts with water, with liquid, it can release a lot of heat. So when you hear about a reaction that happened, it's not a fire, it's not anything like that, it's a release of a significant amount of heat that was going on. That was early 2000s. Middle Point and Republic were extremely proactive about responding to that situation when it occurred. We're in deep conversations with TDEC, brought TDEC in. This is not a surprise. It's not something that's new. It's not something that hasn't been out in the public domain for a very long time. In fact, back in 2011 and 14, there were public meetings. There was articles in the DNJ. There was public notices. TDEC was involved. So any insinuation that this is new information or hasn't been out there before simply isn't true. This reaction, we monitor it very, very, very closely and have an established operation, maintenance, and management plan that we follow every single day, and that's agreed to by TDEC. In fact, the top, it's hard to see here, but the top graphic there is actually an inspection from TDEC. It's a publicly available document. Anyone can go to TDEC's data viewer and look at it from December of 2021, where TDEC came on site, really, I think, as a probably in response to some questions they had gotten from the city to review what we were doing in compliance with that OM&M plan. And what's highlighted there is saying that there were no violations or areas of concern identified and that we had the proper documentation. So don't have to take our word for it. That's from our partnership with TDEC. Ultimately, bottom line here is the aluminum waste reaction has nothing to do with odors. It has nothing to do with the expansion, and it has no impact on really anything that's going on at the facility currently. The situation is continuously monitored, and it's resolving. Yes, sir. Yep, I have no problem coming back there. Yep. Last item is just talking a little bit about landfill capacity in Middle Tennessee. And there were certainly some questions about it here coming up previously, and just kind of recounting a little bit of some of the information on this. So this is a slide I think most of you have seen before. It's a slide that we had up during some of the discussions we've had for the RFP. And so what this shows is that landfill capacity within 150 miles of Middle Point landfill right now, and that includes Middle Point landfill. So we have 5 years approximately of disposal capacity left at Middle Point landfill. There are no other landfills within Rutherford County, and there are no other landfills, there's no other disposal capacity within 100 miles of here right now. And that's kind of what this next slide shows. Again, so landfill capacity within 150 miles of Middle Point that's currently permitted right now. I know that all of you are fully aware of this. And I know that that's really was a primary driver for the RFP process, and you're to be commended about that because diversion in an integrated solid waste management plan is vital to the success of any sort of burgeoning community. But this is a real problem. Middle Point, we very much look to be part of the solution here in the community. We have said many times and continue to say it, we are absolutely open to talking about host agreement, absolutely open to talking about disposal capacity, looking to get to the table and talk about expansion opportunities, and really negotiate everything effectively is on the table, and open to be part of the long-term solution here in the county, because ultimately, not having Middle Point here is akin to just having a significant and unplanned tax on your constituents, which I know you all know, another, I should say, unplanned tax on many of your constituents. And so just wanted to leave with that and say, we very much look forward to being a partner here. We are not going to stop. And at any point, we have, I think Bishop will be the first to say this, as well as Russell Gossett with the city would also say this. I'm putting all politics aside. Our job and my job every single day is to run the landfill as a good member of the community and a good corporate citizen. And that's something we focus on every single day. We're not going to stop until we feel like we've achieved that, because no matter what happens with an expansion or no expansion or anything else, the county and Middle Point are both going to be here coexisting as partners for at least the next 60 years. So, we very much want to sort of continue the discussions with you. And from there, I'd like to go ahead and open it up for questions. If there's anything that you have related to any of those slides, let me know. Happy to pull those up. and we'll kind of go from there.
Recognize Chairman Harris.
All right. First of all, we had, your predecessor was here, kind of said the same thing. All right? You're saying the same, you're telling us this. So let's go back to, you had a pinched pipe about 40 feet down recently. Is that correct?
That's correct.
Okay. Is that fixed?
It is fixed.
Okay. So one of the things that I'm having a hard time with, is I was told that the odor would be gone by July. Still hasn't happened. So my question to you, and I had three, my question to you on this first one is, why hasn't it happened?
Sure, yeah, let me hop back to that slide really fast. And Commissioner, just to clarify, when you said you were told that it would be done in July, you're referring to
I'm referring to the last time we had these problems, it was an infrastructure problem. Okay, we were told by your predecessor that it would be handled because it was a major infrastructure problem and it was causing the odor concerns. Okay, that didn't happen. Then you gave a comment that it would be done, and it hasn't been done. So my question to you, and Mike, I want to, there's 1,000 problems in the world, all right? 1,000. Your number one problem right now is odor, and that's in expansion is your two biggest things. Right now, I want to talk to you about odor because that is the number one thing on my district that is complained about, and it is, I'm not going to go against my district no matter what. And my district right now wants to know, why is this not happening? Because I keep telling them what you're telling me, and it hasn't happened. So my question again, for the fifth time, why has it not happened?
Yeah, I appreciate you asking that question. Look, I can certainly understand and sympathize with the frustrations here, both from you and your constituents. When I was here in May, last I think I spoke about odor in particular, what I said was I was confident that at one point in the not too distant future, our conversations about odor would be a thing of the past. And I absolutely still 100% contend that is going to be the case. I think what we demonstrated, and again, I'll go back to the analogy of sort of a stock in a bull market, right? The growth and the upward trend, the upward trajectory isn't just unilateral. It doesn't just go in a straight line. And that, we have a lot of ground to make up from where we started a year ago when we all first started working together, really the late 2020. We had a lot of ground to make up. And we built a lot of the foundation early on with a lot of that investment that takes some time to get there. And I think what we saw last year is we saw some significant success, right? We saw gas flows at a level that we had not before been to. We saw reports, corresponding odor reports at a diminished level that we had not before been to. And that was on the right trajectory for where we needed to be. As we've said, landfills are extraordinarily, they seem simple, right? They seem like just a place where you put your trash and everybody walks away and doesn't think about them again. But they are highly engineered, very complex, always changing, dynamic environments. And sometimes things happen unexpectedly there, and it takes some time. You got to peel one layer of the onion back. You got to figure it out. You got to diagnose it and keep moving forward. I think if nothing else, I hate to put a positive spin on some of the issues that came across in late fall of last year. What we can see, though, is the response rate of gas flows coming back so quickly and odor reports dropping also corresponding to that. We've seen that response very quickly, and that's already on an uptrend. That uptrend we absolutely expect to continue, and we're just going to keep knocking it off, setting higher low points as we go to a point where we just exceed that threshold for which there's a potential for offsite odors.
Okay, so this is a quote from you to me. Approximately half of the lost landfill gas flow has already been recovered, and we expect to return the flow rates consistently attained prior to this situation within the next 30 days. This was wrote 75 days ago. So, Mike, I don't, there's a ton of questions we can get into, and these gentlemen will answer them, ask them. But here, I'll end it on this. What guarantee do you have that this odor will go away so that our constituents don't have to live with this?
The promise I can make is kind of the same one that we just introduced, and really that is, we are going to continue to do everything that we can to minimize the potential for offsite odor, and that is all about maximizing gas flow. So we have a plan in place right now that's already proving effective, and we're just going to continue diligently working on that tirelessly until we kind of meet the expectations that we have for our facility.
Mr. Mayor, Mr. Chairman, Commissioner Harris. So I think another piece that Mike's maybe not referring to is himself. So Mike came in a year ago into this role. He's the first engineer we've had running this facility. He's a professional engineer. This is all he's done his entire career. And so we have all the confidence in the world that Mike is going to solve this. The people before him didn't have the same credentials. And so we're making the investment in Mike. We're making the investment in the people on site. We're making the investment in the site, in the facility, so that this is a thing of the past. That is the commitment you're getting from Republic.
So the mayor of Murfreesboro has said that the odor is causing a health concern problem. Is that true?
There's nothing we've seen that would make us believe that it is a health concern. No. And I can't speak to what the mayor of Murfreesboro has said, but I can tell you from our perspective, the science does not say that there's a health concern.
Yeah, there's actually a publicly available document that we have produced in support of the Region Board, so the Central Tennessee Solid Waste Region Board, of which Rutherford County is a member, where our expansion is currently being evaluated. We produced some expert testimony as part of that, and what that did was evaluate all of the data that's been correlated from the city. So the city obviously has odor monitors, hydrogen sulfide monitors, and I think that's what the mayor is probably referring to. There's been 200 between January to January, 21 to 22. There's been 206,000 data points collected by those monitors. Of those 206,000 data points, only 2.6% of those registered even a blip of hydrogen sulfide. That's not what the human nose can detect. That's even detectable. So we have had experts look at this. They have concluded that the concentrations that have been observed in those monitors themselves are not remotely close to what could be hazardous to human health. And again, that report is publicly available. It's probably the most credentialed expert I've ever read a report by, and encourage anyone to go ahead and find that. And I'm happy to provide a copy of that if it would be helpful.
So my last question. So based on you telling this committee, all the odors that are in this city, in this town, in this county, are they all just Republic?
Like here's what I'll say, and I'm an engineer. I don't do well maybe with some of like the dancing around these questions all the time, but I love to, let's quote Coach Vrabel here, something like that, where until we solve all of the things in our own house and take care of our own business, let everything else kind of take care of itself. So I'm not concerned. I have no information to insinuate that there are odors anywhere else. What I'm saying is we're going to focus on taking care of what we can within our own fence line and let everything else just kind of take care of itself.
Go with Wayne. I think he was first.
We're talking about health, so do you consider mental health part of our health issue? And the reason I ask you that is that we had a public forum here where I think close to 40 people expressed their concern over the smells. I think 3 veterans actually spoke and talked about the mental health that it caused cost for them because it took them back to either Iraq or Afghanistan with the smell. So the mental health part of it concerns me. Also, at the regional board meeting that out at the airport, a recollection was shown, was it May 21st, when I think basically it was said, hey, we think we got this fixed. I'm paraphrasing, of course, but apparently you didn't have it fixed. And we assume that this is just going to continue to be a work in progress, and you're going to give your best effort, but you can't promise that the smell has gone away. You're just going to do everything you can to minimize it. Would that be a correct statement?
Again, like you're absolutely right that we are going to do everything in our power to get ahead of this, and will not stop until we do. In May of last year, just to maybe formalize that a little bit, I didn't say that that we have this all figured out. I've been in waste for over 15 years. I know that that's simply not true, right? These are absolutely complex situations that we're working with. Things change all the time. But what you can do is you can reach a threshold where that bottom level, as things kind of go up and down, exceeds the level where the potential for off-site odors exist. And I've said to Commissioner Harris, and I'm saying it to you here, I have every confidence in the world that we are on our way to that point, and we will get there. And I continue to say that, and I so much look forward to the day when I can look at you all and straight in the eye and say, see, I told you that someday odors would be a thing of the past in the not too distant future, and I absolutely stand by that.
Would you go back to the aluminum?
I want to address the first part of your question, if I could, on the veterans and mental health, because I think it's really important. My dad's actually a veteran. He served in Vietnam, and so I've heard the stories of what can happen when you come back from being overseas. And we have every vested interest in people not having impacts as a result of our landfill. Every vested interest. That's why we're investing. That's why Mike's here. If people are having issues with mental health, I can't imagine what that would be like. But we have every vested interest in being a good neighbor, a good partner, and not having those sorts of comments come to you or to a public forum ever in the future. I can promise you that.
Thank you. Can we go back to the aluminum slide? Of course, earlier in your presentation, you talked about the solid waste in the ground. Kinked well, did that cause the waste is moving?
Yeah, it occurs because of natural differential settlement as the waste decomposes. That's correct.
So of course, I've got a copy of the report that was made by an engineer at the regional solid waste meeting at the airport, and I'm looking at that last statement. It says, situation is continuously monitored and resolving. What does resolving mean when you're talking about what was said that these wells, the temperatures are climbing? So what does that mean? And if there is a problem festering or brewing, what is it that you can do or TDEC is going to tell you to do to resolve this issue?
Sure. So I've read that report that you're referring to. I think, I'm intimately familiar with the data, and I can say unequivocally that temperatures are not increasing. So the conclusions drawn in that report, I won't really speak to them, but I do know what's going on at our facility, and temperatures increasing is not the case. When we say resolving, it's kind of interesting because this facility with the aluminum waste reaction actually is something that springboarded Republic to sort of an industry leader in how to successfully manage an aluminum waste reaction in landfills, because it doesn't just happen here, it's happened at many facilities around the country. In this case, the reaction, which again, it's called an exothermic reaction, meaning it just releases a massive amount of heat. That's one of the byproducts of the reaction. But as anything else, you sort of have a peak, and then over time, that heat just slowly dissipates. So when we say resolving, we have a lot of data to back this up, in fact. The amount of material that is unreacted is very, very limited still. So we have temperature probes all throughout that. We monitor the rate of settlement of that entire area. We take samples of the gas, we take samples of the liquid, we do cover investigations and inspections, and we trend all of those things over time, starting back in 2014. And what I can very confidently say is on every single one of those parameters, which indicate the intensity of a reaction, if a reaction is still happening or if a reaction is dissipating, every single one of those indicators trend in the direction of dissipating and resolving.
At some point in time, we might want to have a third opinion with this process.
Robert, you're next, and then I have a question.
I might just suggest, I think TDEC is a great organization to reach out to. They're an impartial party. They've been absolutely understand very thoroughly. They're very educated. They're credentialed PEs, which the person who wrote that report was not. And I think TDEC would probably be a very good outside partner to maybe reach out to and get their opinion on what exactly is going on there.
You said something in your presentation that I hadn't heard before, is where you're pulling the water that's in the gas wells out and you're treating it. What are you actually doing with the water after you've treated it?
So another, sorry to throw a jargon term, but leachate, I'm not sure if you're familiar with that term, but leachate is the liquid that seeps through the waste mass and we pull it off the bottom of the landfill. We have a leachate pre-treatment facility, like a lot of large industrial facilities have. What we do is we treat it, get most of the most difficult to remove contaminants out of it, and then we discharge it to the City of Murfreesboro sanitary sewer system in strict compliance with the permit we have. We have an industrial wastewater discharge permit with the city, and so that's what we do with it. So this liquid that we're pumping out of the top side of the landfill, we're just combining it with those same materials, putting it through our pre-treatment facility there on site at Middle Point, and then putting it into the sanitary sewer for the city.
Okay, that's basically the new thing that I heard this time. But here's the thing, and I don't need to hear from an expert or anything else. Is my constituents call me and they say, "Hey, it stinks over here. This is where it's coming from." And I drive over there and it smells bad. I'm not from Missouri, but again, you're going to fix this, show me. I want to see it done.
I actually am from Missouri, so we are going to show you. Again, it's our commitment. It's our commitment. It's why we're making this investment in the facility, and we're going to continue to make that investment. You have our word on it. You do.
Mr. Engineer, I have a question. And I don't have a calculator, and math is not my strong point.
I make it a point never to do math in public, so I'll figure out how to get it.
I'll ask the audience. Your hydrogen sulfide chart on the far right, your mean, minimum, and maximum. I noticed that your hydrogen sulfide is in parts per billion, okay, per billion. The world I work, hydrogen sulfide is in parts per million. So can you tell me, can you convert parts per billion into parts per million? Because
I believe you just divide by 1,000,000. So that number divided by 1,000,000, so you'd add, what, 8 zeros after the decimal point? So when you're talking parts per million, that is order of magnitudes larger than anything that's been detected by the odor monitors at the City of Murfreesboro. Parts per billion is infinitesimally smaller than a part per million.
Right. But, well, but where I'm going is, like, for instance, that mean for Kingdom Church, 0.62 parts per billion. What is that 0.62 in parts per million? Is that 6.2 parts? Or do you move the decimal over? Is it 62 parts per million or 620 parts per
No,
million?
it is 0.0000000062 parts per million. It gets smaller.
You guys buy that? Again, math is not my strong suit.
I can Google it
You
if you'd
buy
like
that?
me to, but
Okay. It's not the other way around. The number's not getting bigger, it's getting smaller. Okay. Okay, all right. Okay. Okay. Thank you, Mike. Sure. All right. Chanto, you, yeah.
Well, just, I would like to share my experience I found a couple of years back, and when it's in my own house. I live on the other side, near Rutherford Boulevard. And my wife told me, I smell something, and I pay very close attention, and then, I can smell. I thought my house may have the gas line to come to for the heat, and, I call the energy, Atmos Energy. The gentleman answered the telephone. He said, "You need to get out of the house until I get there." When I came in, he checked inside the house, and he said, "No, it don't have anything from here, maybe from somewhere else." So that's why my experience is.
All right. Guys, I have a question that's off the topic, but I want to wait till we've finished this topic first. So, do you have, Steve?
Do you have this odor problem at any of your other landfills that you own and operate? Or is this a unique situation?
Sure, we've had odor reports at other landfills. We operate over 200 active landfills across the country. I don't know the percentage of the number of odor reports we've received, but sure, we've had odor reports at other landfills.
So this is nothing unusual to y'all, correct?
I would say it's an industry-wide issue that can be solved, sure.
The meeting you referred to on the aluminum waste, about it having public meetings, the only one I'm aware of was in Walter Hill, at the Walter Hill Old School Gymnasium. It was an excellent presentation, but there were only 4 public people in attendance to that meeting. I was one of them. Clear that up. Now, how can you convince me that you can fix this irritating problem when you can't keep the sludge off the highway in front of your landfill or the trash picked up and down the ditch? That's just minor little jobs. And you're talking about you're spending millions of dollars on this, and you can't fix the minor little jobs. Now, that's one of the complaints I hear heavily in my district, is running through the sludge. They said maybe Monday, you couldn't even tell where the lines were on the sides of the road. Of course, I understand the landfill's muddy, but I know you've got equipment to clean it with, too. Can you help me there? If you can't fix the little stuff, how are you going to fix the big stuff?
So, what you're talking about is being a good neighbor, right? And I've said it before, and I'm going to say it all the time, and that is we think about it every day. We focus on it every day. Our commitment is to be a good neighbor. Some of the things that we do for those 2 particular issues, right? We have a team of people every single day that's out picking up litter outside of our fence line. That's litter that's coming in on city trucks, on business trucks, on trucks that they're customers that aren't at the landfill facility, but they're bringing in trash from the community, right? That can escape. There can be a bag that falls off. Someone hits it going over the bridge on Jefferson Pike, or on 231, excuse me, and trash goes everywhere. I mean, you see trash all over the sides of interstates everywhere, right? So we focus on picking up trash around the perimeter. We have recently purchased sort of a litter vacuum that can actually go and use, and we can drive that around. Certainly we view management of those roads and picking up of the litter as a responsibility for ours. There's also, if customers were to get ticketed by law enforcement for not tarping, for example, those are some other things that can happen. It's a shared responsibility that we have for managing the waste of our community. We take a large role in that, but it's a shared responsibility for every single one of us in this room to be responsible for the trash that generate and get thrown away. Regarding track out, you're absolutely right. We have a wheel wash system that's on every single day when it's wet. We have a street sweeper that we use on our own facility, and we pay for third-party street sweeping 7 days a week, every single week, with 2 different vendors actually, to help make sure that we're limiting the amount of track out that we get on Jefferson Pike and coming out of our entrance.
You're not getting your money's worth from your street sweeping people. You need to check in on that. Thank you.
Anything else on the odor topic?
Yes, just one brief one. On the slide of your gas piping, the active cells look like you had concentrated. Yeah. So the magenta color, how many of those are the new horizontal collectors inside the daily lift?
5 of those. So those sort of long, it's hard to see here. They're
the long dashes?
The dash, yep, you got it, nailed
So
it.
the majority of the new gas collector system that you've done is horizontal piping inside the daily lifts.
We had 5 horizontal pipes inside the daily lifts and a total of 17 new vertical wells that went in as well.
It looks like 50% or more is in the daily lifts.
Sure.
Is that a standard practice now? Gas collector systems in lifts, in your daily lifts?
So that area that you see there, I'm sure all of you are familiar with. Actually, let me just jump back really fast, if I might, to the opening slide. Oops. So that area, it's a kidney bean kind of. North is up. That's where Jefferson Pike is. You see the area where you see kind of waste there, where it's like the whiter patch. That's cell 10. That's kind of that far eastern and southern area. That's what we call cell 10. That's what we're active filling. It's a 15-acre cell. That's the area of the landfill where we haven't historically had active gas collection. Again, EPA and TDEC require us to install gas collection within 5 years of waste being placed. That cell opened in 2018, and we started putting gas collection in it in 2020. So we were 3 years ahead of required schedule. It is absolutely the place where we have the least amount of collection, which is why we're focusing our efforts there so heavily. So whether it's active or not, it's really not so much of a concern as far as much as it is getting coverage and getting dense coverage of collection assets in portions of the landfill where it isn't sufficient.
Any more questions on odor? If not, I have a question that goes back to a question an hour ago. We have a convenience center issue. You're our neighbors. You can help us. How can you help us? Will you help us? Do you have any ideas?
Sure. So I'll start by saying, and I think Bishop would agree to this, we are, and I said this before, we're going to be your partner for the next 60 years, having adjoining property. Putting everything else aside, we're in the business, you're an important customer to us, and we're in the business of helping you as an important customer. One recent example is I've been talking with Bishop about opportunities for us to take, rather than right now you're pumping out leachate from your landfill and you're sending it to Nashville, ironically, where we were paying, I think, probably close to 20 cents, 18 cents a gallon, I'm not really sure, to dispose and treat that liquid there. What I propose is a solution where you can actually bring that using county assets, bring it in a truck over to our pretreatment facility, and we can treat that liquid on site and send it to the city sanitary sewer, saving you about a third, probably 2/3 of the cost. And I calculated it roughly, I'm looking at about a little over $300,000, $350,000 a year. So that's something that just, Bishop and I have worked together closely. We talk relatively frequently. That's something we've proposed as an opportunity to help out. So put that on the table. No strings attached with that one. When it comes to the convenience centers, I think it's not so easy as open Middle Point up for a Sunday and the problem resolves itself, right? It's a multifaceted solution that we would love to be a part of. Clearly, there's not enough trucks and there's not enough drivers. 14 convenience centers spread across, I'll say it if Bishop won't, I think 14 convenience centers with all of that material spread across an entire county. You do not have enough trucks and you do not have enough drivers. No matter how many hours Middle Point is open, your drivers are going to bump up against their DOT limit and not be able to pick enough trash up. So first and foremost, I think that's a problem that should absolutely be addressed. Can we, in pinches, when you absolutely are kind of up against the gun and have an emergency, can we keep the landfill open, Middle Point open late on Saturdays? Yes, I can. I have a staff of about 35 people that we'll be paying overtime to and keeping all the equipment running for a very small amount of tonnage, but happy to do it to help out a partner like the county, absolutely. We also open at 4 a.m. There's opportunities for county drivers to start working at 3 a.m., be at our gate at 4 a.m. when there's no traffic on the road, there's no competing interests, get them in and out of the landfill very, very quickly. On situations where possibly there's a long wait time at the landfill, which happens sometimes, right? This last week, we have 8 pieces of mainline equipment that manage and handle all of our trash. We had 6 of those pieces go down. So we have, think about, you have 7 trucks. If you had 5 of your trucks go down, what would happen to the waste, right? It would, and the same problems we see with getting parts and getting equipment and everything else with trucks, we see the same thing with heavy equipment. So wait times were a little bit longer. Those problems are resolved, as Bishop mentioned. I think turn times today were 32 minutes, which is a fantastic number. What we could do is potentially look at bypassing some of the line and getting you in and out faster on county trucks that are hauled on your own backs if you're up against it. So again, we have said this from the beginning, and on every single issue that comes up, we're your partner, you're an important customer to us, and politics don't exist when it comes to getting the trash responsibly managed. We prove that every single day, and happy to be part of a bigger picture solution to help you with your convenience center issue.
Anything else, gentlemen? Brad, thank you. Oh, sorry, Robert, go ahead.
Since you guys are in this business, I'll ask you this. This is something that I'm going to request from the mayor's office, regardless. What would be the cost to this county, assuming we'll use our number 40 tons? What would be the cost of us to dispose of trash somewhere else and say the next nearest, I don't know, where is that next nearest landfill other than you? Do you have any idea what those costs would be? I know, we've seen figures of $65 a ton for disposals, but I'm not, cognizant of what it would take to haul that amount of trash for a certain distance, say 80 miles, 100 miles, whatever it is.
So first problem, if you think it's a long-term time to haul to Middle Point, I guarantee you it's a long-term time to haul to Lewisburg. So y'all don't have a transfer station. So first of all, you don't have infrastructure right now, even if you wanted to take your material anywhere else. There is literally nowhere else for you to haul to that would make operational feasibility. Assuming that's kind of off the table, really what we're seeing right now, if you were to go to Lewisburg, I would, not to speak for any competitors here, I would say that that's probably a reasonable number, maybe call it $65, $70 a ton, realistically, for that disposal cost. The problem is, you saw those graphs, Lewisburg has 8 years of life left. If Middle Point closes, And all of the waste from Metro Nashville and from Davidson County and from Rutherford County and from the city of Murfreesboro goes to Lewisburg, that airspace is gone. So no matter solution that comes, that's going to be a very, very temporary solution, assuming you have the infrastructure to accommodate it, which currently doesn't exist in the county.
Well, I think it's obvious why I'm asking this, because, our constituents are consistently asking us to close this landfill, to not allow an expansion. And I understand why. I mean, talked about it. I don't think we need to repeat it, but what we hadn't talked about is how much it's going to cost for the alternative. And I want that out there too. I want people to know this is what you want. I want you to know what you're asking for and what you're going to get when you get that. This commission has voted twice at full commission level not to allow an expansion. But people need to realize what that means to their pocketbook. I need a cost on what it's going to cost a household per month if that landfill is closed.
I might just one thing to that, to add on, because I think it's a fantastic and incredibly important piece. You as commissioners have an incredible amount of power in this situation as well. I think trying not to be myopic about it's either status quo or it's transfer out, right? We're in a position where we want to stay in business here in the county for the long term. And we want to do that in a way that's a win-win for everybody. So there is a third alternative, and that alternative is come to the negotiation table. Let's sit down. Let's talk about what you all want and need, what your constituents desire, if Middle Point were to stay in operation and get an expansion of some sort, whatever that looks like, whether it's additional requirements for managing litter pickup or additional requirements for managing track out. Any sort of those conditions, those are absolutely opportunities that would be viable. So I don't want to cross off that third option so readily and be so pigeonholed.
Like I said earlier, you got to show me. It's up to you. It's not up to me. And you got to convince the people of this community that are having to put up with the odors and the traffic and the mud, whatever else. That's who you need to convince, not me. You convince them, they're going to convince me.
Craig.
Okay, I started, so I'll end it. It is, as an engineer, you're aware of the fact that construction debris, such as drywall, can cause bad odors. So do you feel, one of the things that this commission is doing, and that I will definitely support, is that we're talking about bringing in a company that will take our construction debris. So that would help some. Is that correct?
I think any amount of material that is pulled out of there that's managed in a different way would reduce the potential for generating gas.
Drywall is a main concern of odor. Yes or no?
Drywall, especially ground up drywall in significant quantities, definitely can be a concern of hydrogen sulfide, yeah.
Okay. And my last question is that you have a agreement with the city of Murfreesboro on your leachate, or what is it?
Leachate? Yeah, okay.
Leachate, right?
Yeah, so we have you want me to explain the agreement? Is that what you said?
I want to explain the agreement, then I want to know one of the things that when dealing with Republic and being a commissioner, and I feel that I am a good commissioner because I always look at what ifs. And that way I know what to expect. So my question is a what if. Whether you want to answer or not, it's up to you, but what if that relationship between you and Murfreesboro no longer can work? What do you do with that relationship?
I'll explain what the relationship is to start with. So, our agreement with the city of Murfreesboro is a pretty straightforward swap agreement. So we take the city of Murfreesboro's municipal solid waste and biosolids from their wastewater treatment plants 100% free of charge. and in return, the city of Murfreesboro takes our leachate that has been pre-treated on site into their sanitary sewer system, also no charge. So it's a swap agreement there. If that agreement were to no longer be in effect, we would have to come up with a new solution for what to do with our leachate, and of course the city would have to come up with a new solution for what to do with their waste. Brad, anything to add to that? Okay.
I have one last question. Means I normally have 5, but I'm gonna try and keep. I'm gonna try and keep it to 1. And this is just me talking. All right. This is Mike Cush, resident of Rutherford County. Done some RFPs. We've learned technologies. We've learned what is somewhat affordable, but yet doesn't do the whole job. But we've learned that there's no one silver bullet. We understand that it will probably take a series of technologies to get to where we want to go. We understand the global republic, City of Murfreesboro, Rutherford County relationship. You made the, please, not the right word. You threw it out there that you would love to talk to us again about the future, things like that. But just me, forget these guys. I don't know what their opinion is. My current opinion in the current level of litigation, he said, she said, I don't know if we can talk to you, not you, Michael, but you as a company. There's things going on that I'm just not sure we can sit down at a table and have a gentleman's conversation, because I'm afraid that your attorneys will say, well, look what he said, and we're going to, 5 months from now, I'll be on the witness stand saying, Chairman Cush said this. So I'm a little apprehensive to chat with you folks. Again, this is just me talking. I'm not speaking for this committee. I'm a little apprehensive to have any conversation with you folks based on what's going on right now. So am I off base here, or can we have a conversation? I don't know, because the last thing I want to do is get into a fight with you guys that will cost us a lot of money. And so if it means just don't talk to you and ignore you, I just don't know what to do. I'd like to sit down and hear what you have to say again and get in deeper, but I don't know if we can talk to you. I don't know if our county attorney would say we can talk to you. Those are the things I don't know. I'd like to understand. And maybe your people are saying, go talk to them about the odor issue and try and smooth that over. But these guys are off limits. I just don't know where we all stand as a group. So if you know, fill me in.
The first thing I would say, Mr. Chairman, is that ethics are at the top of our organization. We do things ethically, we do things legally, we do things within bounds. So know that first and foremost. Secondly, I'm not an attorney either, neither is Mike, so I don't know the engagement rules to be able to speak clearly to those. Would be happy to take this back to our team. And you said it as well. Express
my concern.
I will.
Because here's, to make this thing pile on even worse, I had one of our co-committee people say that he was contacted by one of your attorneys that wanted to sit down and have a conversation. And I thought, that's not cool. So, I want everything to be above board. And if we're not supposed to be talking, then we shouldn't be talking. If You know, I just don't want to get down the road and all of a sudden we're all sitting in a courtroom somewhere a year from now and this all comes back to bite us. So I need some guidance. Because if you want us to sit down and try and plan the future like we've talked with other folks and talk nitty-gritty, we'll do that. But we got to have some assurances, or I do at least, that this is a real conversation and this is, you're not setting us up for, you know, a punch in the gut down the road. I'm sorry I feel that way, but that's the way the legal climate has forced us and some of my friends at the city to feel. I'm not expecting an answer. I just want you to take that back to leadership and say we're a little concerned about how to talk to you and if we can talk to you. I say we, Mike Cush.
Brad said it very well. We're certainly just happy to circle back. I just want to emphasize that none of these discussions about the future of waste in this community are I mean, we would be happy to have those in any setting with you. We have, and we have said this with all parties involved, we want to sit down and talk and be part of we have a negotiated agreement. We want to sit down and talk about how we can do that in the right way. So I don't think, you know, I understand and can certainly respect your concern there. It's a lot to keep track of. There's a lot of legal stuff happening. Yeah. But, you know, there's nothing that would stand in the way of us being able to sit down and talk about how we have a future together and some of those agreements that we have in place.
Right. Well, you know, and the added cog in the wheel is, you know, we hope to be partnering with the city, or certainly have discussions with the city about this being a whole county all-in kind of a deal. Well, you know, there's things going on between you and the city that right now we're an innocent bystander, but we may be, by association, there may be some kickback.
You know, what's going on right now the only thing that's happening is related to the region board, and of which Rutherford County, you know, isn't a bystander. You are very much an active part of those discussions, and certainly, you know, a contributing member to everything that's going on there. So, again, I'll just say it again. If y'all are interested in having discussions with us, like real discussions about how we make something happen here, will absolutely be an appropriate forum to do that, and we are ready to have those conversations.
All right. Okay. I just don't. We don't have the money to hire 7 environmental attorneys to sit with us and have a conversation with you guys. That's what I'm saying. So if that's what has to happen, then we're not talking to you. It's that simple. Okay. All right. Anything else? Any old business? Yes.
Rachel, I requested Rachel to send out, you have responded, asked her to send out 3 different dates. You've got response from how many?
It went out today.
And I've got responses from 2, so I'm still waiting on the others, and as soon as I get a final date, I'll let everybody know.
Yeah.
I'll have to look at my dates.
By who? I apologize, that's the first time I'd heard that on a Tuesday, Thursday after 6, the only thing I'd heard but late afternoon.
Yeah.
So,
That's the reason they didn't come to the other meeting. They all had meetings like we did that night.
Mr. Mayor, maybe you should ask Steve to set up the meeting. There you go. Problem solved.
Well, the 2 that did respond selected the 14th, and I originally said 5 o'clock, but we could, you know, we can always move that if needed. Yeah, we didn't know anything about the, 6 or after, and then Tuesdays and no Tuesdays or Thursdays.
If you knew that, I wish they would have responded to me and say after 6 o'clock
Yeah.
on Tuesday and Thursday, because I didn't get that response. So they must have responded to you. Well, why didn't you call and tell me? Well, I'm telling you tonight, I didn't. You should have called like you do everything else and asked, were you aware? And I'm not, I'm kind of, I'm trying.
Or you guys get your feathers ruffled, I sent an
I'm not
email.
getting-
I sent an email that
Yeah.
said after 6, and I believe I specified days. I'll hunt it down this evening when I get home.
All right,
So
that'd be fine.
I sent an email.
And where did you get it from?
I was requested by the mayors to not select certain days and to do it after 6 for the same reasons Piercy just said.
Okay.
And I relayed that in an email,
We'll go back.
to the best of my recollection.
All right, we'll go back and check that, Mr. Chairman.
All right, anything else? Adjourn. Thank you, everybody.